Chapter 112. Clang. The two swords clashed. Xueqi and the Sword Monarch were locked in a stalemate in the air. This kid's strength is quite great. No, it should be the power of that sword. The Sword Monarch squinted his eyes and thought to himself. At that moment, Xueqi directly used Six-Path Sword Shadow. The original body and the Six-Path Sword Shadow performed the Soul Eater slash at the same time. The black sword chi instantly engulfed the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou, and like a volcano eruption, it soared into the clouds. The sword cultivators and guests who ran out of the palace were stunned. Such a powerful aura. Was he really at Inner Pellet Stage 5? Xiao Jinghong clenched his fists in excitement. As expected, Xueqi would not disappoint him. Behind him, the woman in the white dress widened her eyes. Just like the others around her, she was astonished. How is this possible? Xie Wuyo was so angry that his body was trembling. Sword God Zhou had brought shame to his Xie sect. He naturally did not want to see Sword God Zhou unleash his godly power. Right at this moment, streaks of violent sword chi suddenly dispersed the pillar of chi formed by the black sword chi. The Sword Monarch came up to Xueqi as though he teleported. He raised the black sword in his hand and slashed. His movements were incomparably domineering, with the posture of a sword cleaving through mountains and rivers. Xueqi raised the sky-sundering Emperor sword to block. Now that he had the power of the ancient Sword Emperor, he was not afraid of being instantly killed by the Sword Monarch. The two swords clashed again, and Xueqi felt an unstoppable and domineering force coming at him. His right arm was in immense pain, and his body fell straight down. When he was about to hit the ground, the Furious Ape Sword and the Royal Water Sword appeared below him, blocking his back. With a flick of his swords, he was sent flying. This scene caused an uproar among the crowd. Did the sword become sentient? The Sword Monarch's eyes widened. Zhou Donghuang's attainments in the way of the sword were higher than he had imagined. He could tell at a glance that the Furious Ape Sword and the Imperial Water Sword did not have a sword spirit, which meant that Xueqi was controlling the two swords. Before he could think further, Xueqi had already arrived in front of him. Xueqi swung his sword quickly and activated Dual Sword Will. Vibrant Raindrop Sword. Moonlit Wind Sword Dance. The two Earth-grade sword techniques each had their own profundities. The two swords trembled, and the sword chi turned into rain and wind, sweeping towards the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. Xueqi's posture was elegant, and each of his moves was filled with profound meaning, which fascinated everyone. On the other hand, the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou was able to defeat everything with his strength alone. He also wielded two swords, but his sword aura looked even more domineering. However, no one dared to underestimate Xueqi in this situation. Such handsome movements. This is the dual sword intent? Hiss, am I seeing things? So powerful. Compared to him, the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou only has a higher cultivation. In terms of sword techniques, Sword God Zhou has already surpassed the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. Do you have any objections? *T. The Sword Monarch of Great Zhou has it easier, okay? Are you blind? If they were at the same cultivation level, the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou would have already been defeated. The spectators began to discuss fervently, and soon, two camps were formed, cursing and arguing with each other. The Firebird old lady's face was dark. She did not expect Xueqi to be so powerful. Although Xueqi was indeed relying on the might of his legendary swords, with the dual sword wills, even an outsider like her could not find any problems with it. Silver legendary swords appeared under Xueqi's feet one after another. He stepped on the swords with the 8-step sword lunge and moved around the Sword Monarch. Other than that, the Bloodbath Sword, Furious Ape Sword, Thunderclap Sword, Water Driving Sword, Ghost Curse Sword, Tempest Calmer, and other gold legendary swords were also attacking from different directions. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been turned into a sieve. The Sword Monarch of Great Zhou's swords were actually very fast, and he could block every strike. The two of them fought intensely in the air. Sword chi swept across and swept away the clouds. Even the cultivators at the foot and waist of the mountain could see it. Zhou Qingxin was exhilarated. He clenched his fists and said with a trembling voice, I did not expect Sword God Zhou to be able to fight against the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. That was the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou, the most powerful cultivator in Great Zhou. Humph, what a joke. The Sword Monarch is not serious yet. Do you think this is the power of the sword monarch? Zhou Tianyu said with disdain. Although the battle between Zhou Xuanji and the sword monarch was exciting and dazzling, it was like a small fight, not worthy of their fame. Princess Xuanya could not hold it anymore and said, "Big brother, are you prepared to take sword god Zhou as your teacher? Do you think he will accept you?" With this, Zhou Tianyu's face turned black immediately. His eyes were spitting fire. He could not wait to capture Princess Xuanya and beat her up. With sword god Zhou's temper, it was already good enough that he did not draw his sword at him. Take him as his teacher? Boom! At this moment, a deafening explosion came from the sword monarch's pinnacle, which attracted countless people's attention. A sword chi that was hundreds of meters long sent Zhou Xuanji flying backward. Facing this horrifying sword chi, Zhou Xuanji relied on the sky-sundering Emperor Sword and the God Emperor Sword to block it. But he still could not block it and flew backward for 1,000 meters. After he stopped, he drew his swords and dispersed the sword chi. His arms were numb, and he was shocked in his heart. Even with the help of the power of the ancient sword emperor, he still could not block it. And looking at the sword monarch's posture, he looked so relaxed and relaxed. It was obvious that he did not use his full power. Could this guy have already reached the pinnacle of spirit refinement? Zhou Xuanji guessed in his heart. Qi nurturing, foundation establishment, enlightening, inner core, spirit spring, nascent soul, astral projection, spirit refinement, Mahayana. There was only one Mahayana in the great Zhou, at least on the surface. It was Emperor Yan of Zhou. Other than that, Zhou Yalong had also stepped into the spirit refinement realm. If it wasn't for the fact that his legendary swords were powerful, Zhou Xuanji would not even be able to withstand a single finger of theirs. The corner of the sword monarch's mouth curled up, revealing a disdainful smile. He once again sent out 2 waves of sword chi toward Zhou Xuanji. It was 2,000 zhang long. It was as if it could tear the sky apart. It was peerlessly domineering. Zhou Xuanji wielded the sky-sundering Emperor Sword and activated the Tempest Slash. The power of the ancient sword emperor roared out. A similarly powerful strand of sword chi shot out and collided with the first strand of sword chi, causing a violent gale to wreak havoc in the surroundings and shake the sword monarch's peak. However, the sword monarch's second wave of sword chi pierced through the gale and continued to attack. Zhou Xuanji leaped and dodged the sword chi by a hair's breadth. The sword energy swept across 10,000 meters. It flattened a mountain far away. Dust billowed up, and rocks flew into the air. Many cultivators were so frightened that they dodged in panic. Zhou Xuanji somersaulted with his head facing down. He swung his swords, and the other legendary swords around him followed suit. 10,000 Sword Dragon Incantation. 10 Swords Mode. Dragon-shaped sword chi wrapped around each legendary sword. At first glance, it looked like Zhou Xuanji was leading 17 dragons to attack the sword monarch. He sped up suddenly and came up to the sword monarch in an instant. Clang! 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 The sword monarch's expression did not change. He withstood all the legendary sword's attacks with ease. A tinge of shock flashed in the depth of his eyes. What kind of talent is this? 17 swords, and each sword could use different sword moves. It was as though he was being attacked by 17 sword god Zhou at once. This guy's talent in the sword's way was more powerful than his. At this moment, a murderous intent grew in the sword monarch's heart. If he did not kill Zhou Xuanji would surpass him sooner or later. After the thought, he swung his swords even faster. Chapter 113. Facing the sudden increase in the speed of the sword monarch's sword, although Zhou Xuanji was shocked, he did not panic. He still maintained the dual sword wills and the 10-sword style, fighting to his heart's content. His control over the 10-sword style was also improving steadily. This kind of battle where he could freely display his strength made him feel very good. The hundreds of thousands of spectators on the sword monarch's peak enjoyed the battle as well. Not to mention the identities of these two people, just witnessing this battle was enough for him to have no regrets in his life. No matter if it was the sword monarch of Great Zhou's domineering and steadiness. It was still the magnificence of sword god Zhou's 17 swords. They were both pleasing to the eye and shocking to the heart. Too strong. How did he do it with so many swords? With this sword technique alone, he can become a sword god. Where's the sword monarch? Why don't you take out his other 5 swords? 7 swords against 17 swords? Ha ha ha, I'm afraid the sword monarch of Great Zhou would feel embarrassed. Why don't we just fight like this? How old is sword god Zhou? You look younger than the good-for-nothing in my house. Don't be fooled by his appearance. He's an old monster. Hundreds of thousands of people discussed excitedly, and most of them were shouting sword god Zhou's name. This was a powerhouse of the new generation challenging a legend. After this battle, even if sword god Zhou lost, his name would spread throughout Great Zhou, and he would become one of the most powerful cultivators in Great Zhou. He was #1 on the Great Zhou honor roll. So strong. Han Shenbo was flabbergasted. He suddenly felt lucky. It turned out that Zhou Xuanji had held back when they fought. Or else, he would not even be able to withstand a single slash from Zhou Xuanji. Xuanji, you can do it! Jiang Shui shouted as she swung her fist for Zhou Xuanji. No one cared about her because the others were watching the battle anxiously too. This old man is convinced again. This kid is too strong. In this life, this old man must pester him to death. The little black snake was so excited that its body was trembling, and its eyes were filled with a strange light. Zhao Tsongjian, Bei Shao Wangjian, and Huang Lianxin were excited. Even a big and small air were flapping their wings. In front of the palace gate, Xiao Jinghong clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were slightly red, and a myriad of emotions were surging in his heart. Memories surged. Hey, little wimp, what sword technique are you practicing? 9 years ago, he looked at the young Zhou Xuanji mockingly. At that time in his eyes, Zhou Xuanji was extremely weak. Even after he became Zhou Xuanji's disciple, he still had to protect Zhou Xuanji in secret. 9 years later, Zhou Xuanji challenged the sword monarch of Great Zhou for him. Although this wasn't the first time he was shocked and moved, he was still very excited. He could only feel his blood boiling. Jinghong, are you all right? The lady in white asked out of concern. Xiao Jinghong's attitude made her feel very complicated. In the face of his own feelings, he had never lost his composure like this. Xiao Jinghong did not answer her but continued to stare at Zhou Xuanji. It was as if his master was the only one in his world. Zhou Xuanji leapt back and stabbed forwards with his 2 swords. The 15 legendary swords gave off dragon-shaped sword chi and turned into a massive rainbow dragon that roared as it shot out. The dragon's roar exploded. It was earth-shattering. In front of this 7-colored dragon, the sword monarch of Great Zhou seemed so tiny. The sword monarch looked up, and his eyes were filled with a domineering arrogance. He raised his 2 swords and easily blocked the 7-colored dragon. With a jolt of his arms, the 7-colored dragon immediately dissipated, turning into wisps of sword chi that resembled clouds and smoke. Child's play. I will let you see why I can become the sword monarch of Great Zhou. The sword monarch laughed proudly. His heroic spirit soared into the sky. Many swords resonated and gathered together, shaking everyone's heart. 5 black swords appeared behind the sword monarch, which were exactly the same as the 2 in his hand. 7 swords. The hundreds of thousands of spectators were excited at this scene. Within Great Zhou, everyone knew that as long as the sword monarch took out 7 swords, it meant that he was serious. What came next was the highlight. Zhou Xuanji sensed that the sword monarch's aura had changed. But he was not afraid. Instead, he was excited. He stabbed forward with his left hand, and the 15 legendary swords charged toward the sword monarch again. At the same time, he leaped up and stepped on the thunderclap sword. Lightning enveloped his body and tightened his muscles. His speed increased tremendously. He charged toward the sword monarch with 1 step. Ranged sword propelling. Killing in an instant. The sword monarch slashed with his sword, and the 5 black swords behind him charged toward Zhou Xuanji in a line. The speed of the 5 swords was not any slower than Zhou Xuanji's. Boom! Zhou Xuanji was sent flying backward by the 5 swords. He felt as though he was rammed by a giant mountain. The sky-sundering emperor sword trembled continuously, and blood spurted out from his perlicue. Looking at him flying into the flatland far away, the sword monarch frowned slightly. Because there were many cracks on one of his black swords. What kind of sword was that? Zhou Xuanji's body spun and flew 10,000 meters away. He landed on the flatland, and the friction between his feet swept up 2 rows of grass. His face was pale, and he felt something sweet in his throat. He endured the discomfort and swallowed the blood. At such a crucial moment, He could not vomit blood. The sword monarch stood proudly under the sea of clouds and looked down at Zhou Xuanji. Looking at you from my height, you are no different from an ant on the ground. Extremely insignificant. The sword monarch spoke slowly, and his voice reverberated across the heavens and earth. Sword god Zhou, you are indeed talented, but you need to let nature take its course. You are not my opponent now. Go back and cultivate for another 1,000 years, and the world will be yours sooner or later. This sentence convinced the majority of the people present. Although they were looking forward to sword god Zhou's counterattack against the legend, they had to admit that the sword monarch was indeed generous. Humph! This old brat is so dignified. His words are always belittling Xuanji. The little black snake snorted coldly. It had been quarreling for thousands of years, so it knew what the sword monarch was up to. Jiang Shui, Zhao Tsongjian, and the rest were furious too. The more they looked at the sword monarch, the more they disliked him. If the sword monarch was really so generous, why didn't he just let Xiao Jinghong go? He was beating around the bush because he did not want to let Xiao Jinghong go and still wanted to maintain his reputation. At the waist of the mountain, Zhou Tianyu pointed down and laughed with disdain. See that? This is the consequence of overestimating your own capabilities. However, he did not receive any response, but a wave of disdain. Your Highness, at least sword god Zhou dared to fight against any powerful enemy for his disciple. What about you? Yeah. Big brother, did sword god Zhou offend you? Yeah. You hate the Empress the most. Do you dare to speak so rudely to her? Only sword god Zhou dares to. You are just jealous of others. Ha ha ha, don't mind him. He can't even keep his position as the crown prince. Of course he will bite others. Sword god Zhou's performance had won over everyone, except for Zhou Tianyu, who still disliked him. Hearing the mockery from his royal brothers and sisters, Zhou Tianyu was exasperated. He roared furiously, "Wait till I become the emperor of Great Zhou. I will show you all." The royal soldiers at the side shook their heads. No wonder he was not favored. It was fortunate that he was born early. If he was a few years later, he would not be able to live until today. No matter in which dynasty, it was a taboo to abolish the eldest and establish the youngest. But at this moment, Zhou Tianyu's position as the crown prince was already set in stone. It all depended on who would replace him. Chapter 114. Zhou Tianyu could not win against so many princes and princesses, so he stomped his feet in anger. Zhou Qingxin shook his head. When he was young, he thought that this big brother of his was quite mighty. But after he grew up, he realized that it was not mighty at all. It was because he had a screw loose in his head. He did things as he pleased without fear. He really thought that he was the emperor of Great Zhou. But it was a pity that it was too late. When the new crown prince appeared, Zhou Tianyu's fate would be worse than death. On the plain, Zhou Xuanji ignored the discussions of the hundreds of thousands of people. He fixed his gaze on the sword monarch as he panted. Even with the power of the ancient sword emperor, it was still a little difficult for him to face the sword monarch's domineering power. His stamina was depleting quickly. He lowered his head slowly and looked at the god emperor sword in his left hand. He swung his hands inward, and the sky-sundering emperor sword and the god emperor sword switched hands. The right hand was his forte. It had to be matched with the most powerful legendary sword. God Emperor. From today onwards, I will make you famous across the world. Zhou Xuanji mumbled softly and injected his spirit energy into the God Emperor sword. In an instant, strands of black qi seeped out from the blade. Ghost qi. It was also the Emperor's qi. Boom. His aura began to grow. The Emperor's ghost qi surrounded his body, causing the ground to tremble. This scene attracted the attention of hundreds of thousands of people. Even the sword monarch's expression changed. This is... he muttered with a frown. His eyes quickly locked onto the God Emperor sword in Zhou Xuanji's hand. Sword monarch, you have always been high and mighty. Everyone is an ant in your eyes. Zhou Xuanji said as he flew up. His voice was calm and soft, but it could be heard by everyone. At this moment, he seemed to have changed into a different person in the eyes of hundreds of thousands of people. With the Emperor's ghost qi surrounding him, Zhou Xuanji gave off the aura of an emperor, like a great emperor who controlled the life and death of everyone in the world. Ghost Emperor. Sword Emperor. He rose quickly, but compared to the height of the Sword Monarch's pinnacle, it was not that fast. But you must understand that no one can always stand at the peak. Even if there is, it can only be me. I will defeat you, replace you, and let you understand the feeling of looking up at others. If you are the Emperor of the Way of the Sword, then I am the Emperor of the Way of the Sword, the God of the Way of the Sword. Zhou Xuanji's voice shook people's hearts. His tone was arrogant and firm. Hundreds of thousands of people widened their eyes and mouths. That is, Zhou Tianyu was dumbfounded. Even if he was brainless, he could see that Zhou Xuanji had completely changed. This aura. He had seen it in one person. Emperor Yan of Zhou. Wait a minute. Father. Zhou Tianyu swallowed his saliva. Zhou Xuanji's figure and face overlapped with the Emperor Yan of Zhou in his memory. Thinking about how Emperor Yan of Zhou was not angry when Zhou Xuanji insulted the Empress, he thought of a terrifying thought. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He shook his head, trying to deny his own guess. Zhou Qingxin was also stunned. The same guess as Zhou Tianyu appeared in his mind. His whole body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. The other princes and princesses did not think too much about it. They all admired Wang Zhe and Zhou Xuanji. At the top of the mountain, Jiang Shui looked at Zhou Xuanji expectantly. She put her palms together in front of her chest. This scene was familiar to her. She had seen it countless times in her dreams. She had heard too many stories from Zhou Xuanji. She would also imagine the scene of Zhou Xuanji ruling the world. She felt a little moved, and tears welled up in her eyes. Zhao Zongjian, Beishao Wangjian, and the rest did not feel as complicated as her. They were just very excited, and their blood vessels were pumping. Xiao Jinghong was even more excited. He did not expect Zhou Xuanji to defeat the Sword Monarch, but at this moment, there's hope. The lady in white beside him opened her beautiful eyes wide. Her face was filled with disbelief. The Sword Monarch frowned and asked, "What's that evil sword in your hand?" Evil sword. With this, Zhou Xuanji's reputation would be ruined. Since ancient times, evil never triumphed over righteousness. The path of evil was always inferior. Zhou Xuanji did not fall for it. You are the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou? This is the God Emperor sword. The God Emperor controls yin and yang, suppresses reincarnation. The Emperor controls the human world, suppresses fate. This sword is the orthodox sword of the Great Tao. It's used to slay evildoers and devils. Zhou Xuanji's voice resounded across the sky, like an emperor announcing the laws of heaven. These words not only rebuked the Sword Monarch, but also mocked his ignorance. Soon, he flew up into the sky and stood at the same height as the Sword Monarch. The God Emperor Qi coalesced into a black shadow that was hundreds of meters tall behind Zhou Xuanji. Its figure was exactly the same as Zhou Xuanji, but it was somehow domineering, like a supreme emperor. Not only that, but the black shadow also coalesced into a black sword that looked like the God Emperor sword. Zhou Xuanji let go of the sky-sundering Emperor sword in his left hand, and stored it into the supreme storage along with the other 15 legendary swords. Just with the God Emperor sword. Defeating the Sword Monarch with a single sword. You are the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. Let's see if you can maintain the majesty of the Sword Monarch in front of my God Emperor sword. Zhou Xuanji laughed wildly. The power of the God Emperor and the domineering aura of the God Emperor merged into his body. At this moment, he felt that the Sword Monarch was not as powerful as before. The Sword Monarch of Great Zhou was speechless. This brat is too good at talking. Humph. I'd like to see how powerful your God Emperor sword is. The Sword Monarch snorted coldly. He felt a little sour in his heart. It would be great if such a legendary sword belonged to him. After that, he waved his right hand. The 5 black swords behind him emanated sword qi. The sword qi coalesced into a gigantic sword. Swoosh! The gigantic sword qi shot out and grew to a length of hundreds of meters in an instant. It was enough to shatter any mountain. Facing such a slash, Zhou Xuanji smiled and slashed at it. Before the gigantic sword qi could even touch him, it was already dispersed. Next, Zhou Xuanji slashed at the Sword Monarch again. This slash. It shocked the world and made the gods weep. The sword flashed, and the sun and moon lost their radiance. On the Sword Monarch's pinnacle, hundreds of thousands of people closed their eyes instinctively. However, they quickly opened their eyes again. afraid that they would miss out on this exciting moment. A stream of black sword chi shot out and sliced the sea of clouds apart. It swept past the sword monarch with incredible speed. The sword monarch's black hair danced wildly in the wind. The sword monarch's pinnacle shook violently. Just when the black sword chi was about to hit the sword monarch's pinnacle, it dissipated suddenly. The tens of thousands of cultivators who were facing it were shocked to their souls. PFFTT. Blood spurted out from the sword monarch's right shoulder and splattered across the sky. The hundreds of thousands of people were dumbfounded. He injured the sword monarch with just one slash? This was sword god Zhou's true power? How can it be? Xie Wuyo cried out in shock. His legs turned to jelly, and he knelt down on the ground. He could not accept this fact. The sword monarch lowered his head so that others could not see his expression clearly. He was still holding his sword. Who the hell is this kid? The firebird old lady trembled as she mumbled to herself. In her heart, the sword monarch had the potential to become the most powerful cultivator in the world. How could he be injured by a junior who was a stage lower than him? Chapter 115. Silence. The entire world fell silent, only the sound of the wind could be heard. Everyone was stunned. They could feel a surge of hot blood coursing through their bodies and rushing up to the top of their heads. Sword god Zhou really injured the sword monarch of Great Zhou. Moreover, it was done in an absolutely domineering manner. Boom. After a short period of silence, the sword monarch's peak boiled with excitement. Sword god Zhou. Ah! A new legend. He is the #1 in Great Zhou's way of the sword. God Emperor Sword? How domineering. The ghost god controls the cycle of yin and yang. The emperor controls the destiny of the world. Well said. This sword is definitely the best sword in the world. Who said that sword god Zhou is weaker than the sword monarch of Great Zhou? The winner has been decided. Sword monarch of Great Zhou, you must keep your words. Hundreds of thousands of people shouted at the top of their lungs, and a name echoed across the earth. Sword god Zhou. Ah! I'm going crazy. Princess Xuanya cupped her face and cried out excitedly, her face somewhat red. The other princes and princesses were equally excited. Zhou Qingxin and Zhou Tianyu stood rooted to the ground, not saying a word for a long time. At the top of the mountain, Jiang Shui and Huang Lianxin hugged each other and jumped on the spot. Zhao Zongjian and Beishao Wangjian waved their fists and roared. Han Shenbo was dumbfounded as if he had seen a ghost. The little black snake opened its mouth wide, and its forked tongue fell out. Xiao Jinghong clenched his fists tightly. His face was ferocious, not because of anger, but because of extreme excitement. Zhou Xuanji's prowess made him feel as if he had broken through his shackles. Such a master was worth following for a lifetime. The sword monarch's disciples and grand disciples all broke down, unable to accept this scene. The guests who came to flatter the sword monarch were all silent. They were dumbfounded, and thousands of words were stuck in their throats. Zhou Xuanji raised the God Emperor sword and pointed it at the sword monarch. From today onwards, there will be one more sword monarch of Great Zhou, and that will be me. Domineering. Everyone was shocked by his bold words. This was sword god Zhou. No matter who he faced, it seemed impossible for him to win, but he always won. It wasn't a difficult victory, but a dominating one. The sword monarch slowly raised his head. His face was expressionless, but his eyes gave off a ferocious aura, like a ferocious wolf that was on the verge of death. Where did this sword come from? He asked in a deep voice, no longer putting on an act like before. Zhou Xuanji laughed conceitedly and said, Jin Yao, have you heard of him? Gold Glory? What was that? The sword monarch frowned. His heart was filled with confusion. Do you understand now? You're actually a frog at the bottom of a well. You don't understand the terror of power. Zhou Xuanji added insult to injury and trampled on the sword monarch's pride. The sword monarch of Great Zhou was a hypocrite. Although he seemed to be giving in, he was actually plotting against Zhou Donghuang. Not only did he not give up his disciple, but he also wanted to humiliate him in front of the world. This was going too far. Today, Zhou Xuanji was going to pull him down from his pedestal. Zhou Xuanji raised his sword with his right hand and swung it over his head. The godly emperor behind him also raised his giant sword. Thunderclouds suddenly gathered and rumbling sounds could be heard incessantly. A vast and mighty heavenly might filled the air. Man is the sword and the sword is man. My heart is only the sword in my hand, and my sword specializes in cutting down all enemies in the world. My sword Dao is invincible. Xueqi shouted, putting on an act. In the eyes of hundreds of thousands of people, he looked incredibly domineering. It was as if a god had descended to this world, looking down on the world. After he finished speaking, he slashed with his sword. The sword monarch did not wait for his death. He channeled his spirit energy with both swords and pierced forward. The two swords combined into one, and the sword chi turned into a rainbow. The two powerful sword chi clashed together like torrents. Boom! A violent gale blew. Their sword chi was hundreds of meters wide and flowed endlessly like a vast ocean, covering the thunderclouds and the sky. The sword monarch's pinnacle shook violently, and countless rocks fell down. Everyone backed off, afraid that they would be swept away by the violent gale. The plains began to crumble. Numerous cracks appeared, forming a complicated valley. The sea of clouds billowed, and thunder roared. At this moment, it was as though a world-ending storm was coming. All creatures wailed, and all spells were destroyed. Facing such a horrifying pressure, everyone felt how insignificant they were. Man is the sword, and the sword is the man. My sword Dao is invincible. Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Congjian mumbled to themselves in a daze. Somehow, they seemed to have realized something. Xueqi rose up slowly and pushed his right arm downward. His sword chi suppressed the sword monarch's sword chi. The sword monarch's expression changed immediately. How can it be? The sword monarch cried out in shock in his heart. He was at the pinnacle of the spirit refinement stage, which was equivalent to a land immortal. Seeing his expression, Xueqi was overjoyed. The glorious gold legendary sword was so powerful. Awesome. Really awesome. With this sword in hand, the world is mine. Soon, Xueqi's sword chi came up to the sword monarch. The sword monarch could no longer keep his composure. He leaped up and dodged the sword chi. He turned into a stream of cold light and charged toward Xueqi. What an old man who goes back on his words. Xueqi cursed furiously and charged forward with his sword. Didn't he say that he would lose if he was injured? Clang! 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 The two of them fought against each other quickly. Their swords were like the wind and clashed against each other crazily, covering every sound in the heavens and the earth. Their attacks were domineering and bold. They did not use any fancy sword techniques but entered their most powerful state of sword will. Boom! The two of them fell from a height of 10,000 meters and smashed into the ground, causing the ground to crumble. Broken rocks flew hundreds of meters high, and grass and dust were swept up like a sandstorm. Xueqi gritted his teeth slightly. Even with the power of the God Emperor, his legs were still aching. If not for the God Emperor, he would have been smashed into pieces by this jump. The sword monarch swung his sword faster and faster, and his strength increased as well. Xueqi did not want to admit defeat and fought with all his might. He switched his sword wills continuously. His sword moves were sometimes imposing and sometimes vicious, which made the sword monarch very uncomfortable. The two of them began to fight fiercely on the plain. The area within a few miles became their battlefield. They moved extremely quickly. Looking from the sword monarch's pinnacle, one could only see the flashes of their swords flashing like lightning. Thunderclouds billowed, and the sky turned darker. This made the battle between the two of them even more intense, which affected everyone's heart. Didn't the sword monarch say that he would lose if he was injured? A cultivator could not hold it and roared furiously. He had the cultivation of inner pellet. Many people could hear him as he roared with all his might. With this, the others were enraged too. The sword monarch of Great Zhou went back on his words, and they still revered him like a god. What a joke! So the sword monarch is such a despicable person. From today onwards, I will only recognize Sword God Zhou as the top cultivator in Great Zhou's way of the sword. No choice. Sword God Zhou is just so powerful. He forced the sword monarch into a corner. It seems like Sword God Zhou is indeed as powerful as the sword monarch. Of course. Look, the sword monarch is already anxious. Hundreds of thousands of people began to condemn the sword monarch. Some even cursed. Those who supported the sword monarch were silent, including his disciples and grand disciples. Chapter 116. So despicable. Jiang Shui was furious and worried for Zhou Xuanji at the same time. She was very clear about Zhou Xuanji's cultivation. After such a huge battle, his body would surely suffer severe backlash. I'm not shameless. Don't call him the sword monarch of Great Zhou. Call him the despicable emperor of Great Zhou. The little black snake cursed furiously. He was so angry that his body was trembling. Is there a difference? Han Shenbo could not help but ask. He's as despicable as you, the little black snake said unpleasantly. Han Shenbo was stunned. I don't train with the sword? Xiao Jinghong walked forward. The lady in the white dress wanted to hold him back, but she was too slow. She wanted to chase after him, but her feet were rooted to the ground and could not be lifted. She was so embarrassed. She often boasted about how great the sword monarch was and how righteous he was in front of Xiao Jinghong. But now, she was filled with shame and even despair. If this continued, she would have no fate with Xiao Jinghong. They might even become mortal enemies. Xiao Jinghong walked to the cliff and sat down with his legs crossed. He closed his eyes. The sound of swords clashing entered his ears. The words that Zhou Xuanji taught him back then appeared in his mind. The sword is like your heart. It's hard to understand, but it will never betray you. No matter what, you must always believe in your sword. Zhou Xuanji's slightly childish voice resounded in his mind. That was what Zhou Xuanji taught him when he was 14 years old. I'm the sword noble, but I can't escape from the sword monarch. I tried to escape again and again, but I was caught by the sword monarch. In the end, it's because I'm too weak. If only my sword was powerful enough, as powerful as my revered teacher. Xiao Jinghong mumbled to himself. He felt like he was going to lose his mind. At this moment, footsteps could be heard from behind him. Humph! Our master is fighting for you, and you're still being so indecisive. Zhao Zongjian snorted coldly. Xiao Jinghong looked back in shock. He saw Zhao Zongjian standing behind him with his arms crossed in front of his chest. His face was full of disdain. Bei Xiao Wangjian's face was also full of disdain. He said, I think, you should be a sword slave and let us be your disciples. Jiang Shui poked her head out from behind Huang Lianxin and said with a smile, if you continue to be like this, Xuanji will be disappointed. Quickly stand up. When Xuanji wins, we can go home. The little black snake laid on the waiter's head and laughed. Almost having a heart demon? In the future, don't say that you're the one who destroyed my body. Huang Lianxin smiled. She didn't need to say anything else. Xiao Jinghong was stunned as a warm current flowed through his heart. He immediately stood up, nodded heavily, and then said with a smile, yes, I should wait for master to win. His master was always able to escape from danger, so he shouldn't worry about him. In the distance, on the stone steps in front of the palace, the lady in white looked at Xiao Jinghong's smiling face and couldn't help but fall into a trance. She suddenly felt that Xiao Jinghong was a stranger. Below, on the boundless plains, the battle between Zhou Xuanji and the sword monarch had reached its climax. The two of them were evenly matched. If not for the fact that Zhou Xuanji had cultivated many sword techniques and understood the sword will, even if he used the God Emperor sword, it would be difficult for Zhou Xuanji to withstand the sword monarch, who was going all out. Within a radius of 10 miles, the ground was filled with holes and cracks left by the ravaging sword qi. Zhou Xuanji knew that things were not going well. If the stalemate continued, his body would not be able to hold on any longer. He must end the battle as soon as possible. After the thought, the sky-sundering Emperor sword appeared in his left hand. The power of the ancient sword emperor. In an instant, his aura grew tremendously. Although the amethyst legendary sword was not as powerful as the glorious gold legendary sword, it was still powerful. Zhou Xuanji felt that there was endless power in his body. He activated the dual sword mode straightaway, and 2 dragon-shaped sword qi surrounded his body. One was a golden dragon, and the other was a black dragon. The 2 dragons were ferocious and caught the sword monarch off guard. The sword monarch did not dare to take out his other swords, in case they were destroyed on the spot. Zhou Xuanji stomped on the ground and forced the sword monarch back 5,000 meters, sweeping up a cloud of grass. He stopped abruptly and surrounded the sword monarch with his 6-path sword shadow. This move again. The sword monarch was shocked in his heart and wanted to dodge instinctively. But it was too late. Soul Eater slash. The black sword chi engulfed the sword monarch like a tornado. The six-path sword shadow disappeared too. Boom! The ground shook violently. Countless soil, rocks, and grass were swept up. Xueqi bent his left leg and got into a half-kneeling position, but his knee did not touch the ground. He slashed again with the God Emperor sword in his right hand. Tempest slash. The sword chi slashed the black tornado into half. A violent gale exploded and shook the air. This sword chi was almost 5,000 meters tall. It was extremely exaggerated. The ground in front of him cracked open and extended for a few miles, forming an immeasurably deep valley. The power of the ghost god could change the appearance of the earth. The dust dispersed, and the sword chi disappeared. The sword monarch's silhouette appeared. He levitated above the valley with his hands and head hanging low. His shoulders rose and fell along with his breathing. His chest was slashed open. Blood flowed, and one could vaguely see his white bones. Severe injury. Xueqi was expressionless. He leaped up to the peak of the sword monarch's pinnacle and came before Jiang Shui and the others. Now, I'm taking Xiao Jinghong away. Who dares to object? Xueqi pointed his sword at those who mocked him in the palace and asked coldly. The sword monarch still had the strength to fight. He was shocked by Xueqi's attack just now. He took the opportunity to fly up and block the sword monarch's path. Facing Xueqi's sharp eyes, no one dared to look back. Even the firebird old lady nodded guiltily. Jiang Shui and the others looked at Xueqi with admiration. Xueqi stopped in front of them. He was less than 2 meters taller than them, but in their eyes, Xueqi was so tall and mighty. Old hag, weren't you cheering happily just now? Xueqi stared at the firebird old lady and said coldly. This old lady cheered even more happily than the sword monarch's disciples. Those who did not know would have thought that he killed one of the firebird old lady's disciples. The firebird old lady heard him and was instantly enraged. Brat, if you did not rely on that sword, would you have been able to hurt the sword monarch? With this, everyone looked at her with disdain. In the cultivation world, who did not rely on enchanted artifacts? Moreover, if a sword cultivator did not use a sword, could he still be considered a sword cultivator? Do you really need someone to fight you with their bare fists to show their true ability? Xueqi appeared in front of the firebird old lady suddenly and slashed. Blood splashed, and the firebird old lady's right arm was severed. The arm spun and landed on the ground. The firebird old lady's expression changed drastically. Her forehead was covered in sweat, and her eyes were filled with fear. She did not scream. With her cultivation, this little bit of pain was nothing. At this moment, in her eyes, Xueqi was like a demon god. He was so powerful that she felt despair. She did not even see how Xueqi came up to her. If you dare to balk again, I will chop off your head next time. Xueqi looked down at her and said coldly. He was filled with a murderous aura, which made everyone around him shiver. After that, he glanced at Xueqi. Xueqi trembled in fear and quickly crawled backward. Chapter 117. Seeing Xueqi's pathetic state, Xueqi smiled with disdain. He turned back to Jiang Shui and the others and said, "Follow me." After that, he flew over the cliff and looked down at the plain, just in case the sword monarch suddenly attacked. The sword monarch turned around and looked up at him. At this moment, the sword monarch's face was covered in blood, but he was not dispirited. Instead, he gave off an extremely dangerous aura. The tables had turned between him and Xueqi. Before he was high and mighty. Now he was below. Sword monarch, you have already been injured by me twice, and you still refuse to admit defeat? Xueqi snorted coldly. He felt a little guilty in his heart. This fellow wouldn't have gone berserk, right? If they were to fight to the death, he would not win. Yeah. You don't have the demeanor of a grandmaster in the sword's way. Is the sword monarch such a person? You said it yourself. You must keep your word and keep your words. Who dares to challenge the sword monarch in the future? Enough, sword monarch of Great Zhou. Do you really have to pester me endlessly? You are too much. Does Great Zhou still have the law? Hundreds of thousands of people condemned the sword monarch together. Their voices were so loud that their saliva splattered like a storm. The sword monarch shuddered and came to his senses immediately. He was afraid in his heart. He almost ruined his image. But now that he was in such a pathetic state, and he had to watch Zhou Xuanji take Xiao Jinghong away, he could not accept it. Zhou Xuanji did not care about what he thought. He brought Jiang Shui, Xiao Jinghong, and the others and flew toward the horizon. He held his sword with both hands and looked domineering. He looked like he was not afraid to fight again. The sword monarch held his sword tightly but did not attack again. His heart was filled with grievance and anger. From today onwards, the name of the sword monarch was tainted. Sword god Zhou was that tainted name. When Zhou Xuanji and the others disappeared into the horizon, the sword monarch's pinnacle was in an uproar again. Hundreds of thousands of people did not give the sword monarch any face and shouted sword god Zhou's name in unison. No matter how angry the sword monarch was, he did not dare to kill all of them. And if he did so, even someone as powerful as the sword monarch could not leave Great Zhou. In terms of true strength, there was an existence with the highest authority in the Great Zhou that was stronger than him. He really did it, Zhou Qingxin mumbled to himself. Ever since he guessed Zhou Xuanji's identity, his emotions became complicated and he could no longer congratulate Zhou Xuanji. He understood that from now on, Sword God Zhou would be his greatest enemy in the fight for the throne. He was not weaker than Zhou Yalong at all, and could even be a bigger threat. Zhou Tianyu sat on the ground in a daze. He, I told you. Sword God Zhou will surely win. Princess Xuanya made a face at Zhou Tianyu as she giggled. However, Zhou Tianyu was not his usual self. He did not fly into a rage. Instead, he sat on the ground in a daze. He murmured, "What a great game of chess. So you've already planned this." When Princess Xuanya heard this, she couldn't help but shake her head. This stupid big brother probably couldn't accept this result and was about to go crazy. Looking at the direction in which Zhou Xuanji and the others left, the sword monarch's face turned savage. "Sword God Zhou, I'll tear you to shreds. Your godly sword will be mine sooner or later." He roared in his heart, his eyes bloodshot. At this moment, he did not look like a sword Dao grandmaster. Instead, he looked like an evil demon. After flying for hundreds of miles, Zhou Xuanji landed on a big's back. Jiang Shui hugged him, and he stored the God Emperor and Sky-Sundering Emperor sword. The powerful force disappeared, and a horrifying backlash exploded. Pfft! Zhou Xuanji could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood, which splashed onto Ah Big's head. Next, his vision darkened, and he fainted immediately. "Revered teacher!" Xiao Jinghong cried out nervously. They all understood that Zhou Xuanji was like this, so they did not dare to raise their voices. "Full speed ahead. Let's leave this place first," Jiang Shui said with gritted teeth. She was not flustered. She understood that she had to remain calm at this moment. Zhou Xuanji had already helped them through the most dangerous stage. The rest depended on them. Zhao Tsongjian, Bei Xiao Wangjian, and the rest nodded and flew at full speed ahead. The little black snake sighed in amazement. "It's still the same thing. I'm convinced. I'm convinced." Fortunately, the sword monarch did not chase after them. At this moment, he was having a headache about how to deal with the aftermath. In the next few days, the news of Sword God Zhou severely injuring the sword monarch bombarded Great Zhou like a meteor shower. The sword monarch had a special identity. He was quite famous in the surrounding empires and kingdoms. So this battle caused the name of Sword God Zhou to spread throughout Great Zhou for the first time. Countless people exclaimed that Sword God Zhou was going to defy the heavens. All the details of this battle were dug up. What Sword God Zhou said made countless cultivators want to devote themselves to the sword's way. All sorts of discussions became more and more ridiculous. Sword God Zhou was being deified. Great Zhou was going to welcome the golden age of the sword's way because of this. Of course, this was for the future. Overall, Zhou Xuanji became a god after this battle. From today onwards, no one dared to look down on him. It was worth mentioning that Zhou Xuanji claimed that he was 16 years old before the battle, which caused a lot of discussion. If he was really 16 years old, then it would be earth-shattering. Zhou Xuanji had a dream. He dreamt that he had achieved great accomplishment in his cultivation and became an immortal. He brought Jiang Shui back to Earth and brought her home to meet his parents. He told them that she was his wife. The family was happy and blissful. This dream was very real. It was so real that Zhou Xuanji did not want to wake up. Until one day, he heard a voice. Xuanji, Xuanji, why aren't you awake yet? Zhou Xuanji's consciousness was gradually awakened. He tried his best to open his eyes. What he saw was the roof beam. Memories flooded into his mind like a tidal wave. He remembered everything and felt a splitting headache, as though his head would explode at any moment. He turned around instinctively and saw Jiang Shui sleeping soundly by the bed. Xuanji, why aren't you awake yet? She mumbled in her sleep. This scene reminded him of the first time he met Jiang Shui. He forced a smile on his face. Sword Spirit, how long was I unconscious? Zhou Xuanji asked in his heart. He hoped that nothing happened to the others while he was unconscious. 2 months. The Sword Spirit replied, which made Zhou Xuanji open his eyes wide. 2 months. Such a high price? Because the sword owner used the God Emperor sword's power for too long. Your body almost exploded. After 2 months of coma, you still need to rest for a while to fully recover. The Sword Spirit reminded, which made Zhou Xuanji smile bitterly. Isn't this too horrifying? He almost killed himself. At this moment, Jiang Shui sensed that he was moving and opened her eyes. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji was smiling bitterly, she sat up immediately. Tears flowed down her face instantly. Xuanji, you are finally awake. She cried out in surprise. Her voice passed through the wooden hut and came outside. Next, Xiao Jinghong, Bei Xiao Wangjian, Zhao Congjian, Huang Lianxin, and Han Shenbo ran in one after another. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji had woken up, they were all overjoyed and began asking about Zhou Xuanji's condition. Zhou Xuanji felt a headache coming on. He interrupted them and asked, when I was unconscious, did you encounter any trouble? Chapter 118. Facing Zhou Xuanji's question, Xiao Jinghong shook his head and smiled. We did not encounter any trouble. The sword monarch can't even take care of himself now and has no time to deal with us. We are now deep in the mountains outside of Great Zhou's borders. There are many demons nearby, and there are few people around. Zhou Xuanji heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, everything was fine. It seemed like he should avoid using the God Emperor sword unless it was a matter of life and death. Northern Valiant Sword said excitedly, Master, you don't know this, but the whole world is talking about your mighty name. They think that you are the Emperor of the Way of the Sword, and that you are not inferior to the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. Zhao Congjian followed, Yes, the sacred grounds and large sects near the Zhou dynasty have extended an olive branch to you, except for Xinhao sect. At the mention of Xinhao sect, everyone laughed. Emperor Yan of Zhou suddenly acted a month ago. He used his mighty power to sweep across the border of Great Xia and chased Xinhao sect out of Great Xia. No matter how much they hate you, they no longer have the chance. Xinhao sect's threat was no weaker than the Empress of Great Zhou and Zhou Yalong. Luckily, they had already been expelled. Even if there were experts who infiltrated the Great Zhou dynasty, they would have to cower and hide. Zhou Xuanji said, All right, that's not important. It's good that you are fine. All right, you guys can go out now. I'm getting a headache from all these people crowding around here. Xiao Jinghong and the others exchanged glances and smiled before they turned around and left. Han Shenbo didn't leave. He stood by the bed and said shyly, Master, when did you agree to unseal me? Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and said, I'll consider it after I recover. Let's see how you perform during this period of time. Han Shenbo was instantly excited when he heard this, and he immediately cupped his fists and bowed before leaving. He was really suffocating. He was originally an expert, but he ended up like a mortal. He was bullied by the little black snake every day, living a life worse than death. After the crowd dispersed, Jiang Shui got up and poured a bowl of hot soup for Zhou Xuanji. She sat on the edge of the bed and blew on the hot soup while saying, This is a soup made from tonic herbs. It can help you replenish your qi and blood. Let me feed you. Zhou Xuanji wanted to sit up, but the tearing pain in his body made him inhale a deep breath. How severe was his injury? He felt his muscles, bones, and internal organs aching from the inside out. He struggled for a while before he could barely lift his upper body, but he still had to lean on the bedding. Jiang Shui gently fed him the soup. You don't know how anxious I was when you were in a coma. I often thought, what should I do if Xuanji never wakes up? But then I thought that since you are so powerful, you will definitely be fine. Jiang Shui began to chatter non-stop, as though she was going to say everything that she had not said to Zhou Xuanji for the past 2 months. Zhou Xuanji listened quietly and stared at her. He could see a trace of exhaustion on the girl's face. Evidently, she missed Zhou Xuanji so much that she could not sleep. She might even be overthinking about cultivation. After drinking the soup, Zhou Xuanji grinned and said, "Don't worry. With you around, how can I bear to die? Even if I die, I will crawl out of the netherworld to find you." Jiang Shui rolled her eyes at him and got up to put the bowl on the table. She walked back to the bed, took off her boots, and lay down beside Zhou Xuanji. She wrapped her arms around Zhou Xuanji's head and let him lie in her embrace. She began to talk about what happened in the past 2 months. It took them 10 days to rush here from the Sword Monarch's pinnacle. During that period of time, they were filled with fear. They were afraid that they would meet a powerful enemy and die, which would be a waste of Zhou Xuanji's efforts. After they arrived, they continued to cultivate. They were often attacked by demons, but they did not need to do anything. The little black snake and the 2 dragon eagles could deal with them. The 3 of them had already made a name for themselves in the nearby demon region. Now, they were roaming outside and causing trouble. Hearing Jiang Shui's words and seeing her sweet smile from time to time, Zhou Xuanji's mind began to empty. Gradually, he fell asleep again. He was too tired. 7 days later, Zhou Xuanji could finally get off his bed and see the light of day again. The group's hut was located in a forest. Behind the hut was a towering tree. Within a radius of 100 meters, there was grassland, and beyond that was a dense forest. Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Tsongjian were sparring with sword techniques, while Bei Xiao Wangjian was teaching Huang Lianxin. Han Shunbo was chopping firewood. Zhou Xuanji walked to the tree and sat down. A gentle breeze blew past, bringing with it the faint scent of grass, which made him feel refreshed. Not long after, the little black snake rode on small air and walked out of the forest proudly. This snake was wearing a crown weaved from flowers and grass, which was extremely ugly. When it saw Zhou Xuanji, it opened its eyes wide. Shhhh. It came to Zhou Xuanji swiftly like a bolt of black lightning. "I knew that you could." Before it could finish, Zhou Xuanji glared at it, and it gave in immediately. "Master, I knew that you would be safe. I am still waiting for you to recover. You don't know that the snake demon in the east is too arrogant." "Who am I?" "The 5th-rank demon king Hegemon-scaled black dragon. It dared to." The little black snake began to complain. Sometimes it was filled with righteous indignation, and sometimes it felt wronged. Actually, it was being bullied by a great demon. It was also a 5th-rank demon. Not to mention Xiao Jinghong. Even Zhao Tsongjian could deal with it easily. But the 2 did not like the little black snake, so they did not help. "All right, you useless thing. You can't even deal with a mere 5th-rank demon. I will starve you for 7 days to teach you a lesson." Zhou Xuanji said impatiently, which made the little black snake feel bitter. It wanted to say something but stopped. At this moment, a gust of wind blew, which shocked everyone. They stopped their cultivation and turned around to look around. "Everyone, be careful. Someone is coming," Xiao Jinghong said with a deep voice. He could sense that a powerful aura was approaching them. Even without his reminder, everyone could already feel it. "Prince Xuanji, long time no see." An old and hoarse laughter rang out, causing everyone to become nervous. The other party addressed Zhou Xuanji as prince, which meant that he knew his true identity. Could he be sent by the empress? Zhou Xuanji frowned. He saw a white-haired old man walking down from the forest. He wore a black and purple robe and a crown on his head. He had an extraordinary demeanor. He smiled at them, but there was an aura of a superior being in between his brows. Seeing him, Zhou Xuanji's brows relaxed immediately. "Who are you?" Xiao Jinghong asked with a deep voice, holding the sword in his hand tightly. The white-haired old man said with a smile, "My name is Wei Xuantian. I have no ill intentions." Wei Xuantian. Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, Bei Xiao Wangjian, Huang Lianxin, and Han Shunbo's expressions changed drastically. The little black snake hid behind Zhou Xuanji immediately out of fear. Wei Xuantian, an important official of Great Zhou. He was the capital of fate, which was equivalent to the Prime Minister. Zhou Xuanji remembered him. He was the confidant of Emperor Yan of Zhou. Back then when Lady Zhao Xian escaped, he turned a blind eye, which was why Lady Zhao Xian and Zhou Xuanji could escape. You were sent by the Empress? Zhao Tsongjian asked cautiously. He was not familiar with the great Zhou's royal court and did not know how to network. Wei Xuantian shook his head and looked at Zhou Xuanji with a smile. Prince Xuanji, do you have the intention to fight for the throne? I'll write at 8 p.m. first. I'll rest for a while before writing. I can't hold on anymore. Staying up all night to write did not allow him to maintain his speed. The longer he wrote, the more he had to fight against sleep. Those who stayed up all night at the internet cafe must have known that 6 or 7 a.m. was the most sleepy time. It was like a weight hanging over one's eyelids. Fortunately, he did not write much yesterday. There were more than one chapter, and it was scary. Damn. There were more than 800 comments at the end of the chapter on Xueqi, and more than 1,000 thoughts in the chapter. There were also nearly 200 comments at the end of the chapter on the browser, and dozens at the starting point. It was terrifying. Chapter 119. Fight for the position of Crown Prince? Everyone was even more vigilant. If Wei Xuantian was a subordinate of the Empress of the Great Zhou, his question was obviously filled with killing intent. No, Zhou Xuanji replied calmly. It wasn't that he was afraid, but that he really didn't want to. He was used to being free and undisciplined, and he did not want to be dragged down by the huge dynasty. In that case, he would age prematurely. Having heard this, Wei Xuantian's smile disappeared, as though he was dissatisfied with Zhou Xuanji's answer. You don't like being the emperor of Great Zhou, above billions of people and wielding the highest authority? Wei Xuantian asked. His eyes were fixed on Zhou Xuanji, as though he was afraid that he was lying. The highest authority? The Great Zhou dynasty is considered the strongest in the northern wilderness region? Zhou Xuanji asked with a raised brow. He was not afraid of offending Wei Xuantian at all. He could tell that Wei Xuantian was sent by Emperor Yan of Zhou. Ever since Lady Zhao Xian had thrown him into the river, he had made up his mind that he would no longer have any kinship with Emperor Yan of Zhou. He had wanted to use Emperor Yan of Zhou to deal with the Empress, but it seemed that there was no need for that now. He was confident that he could take revenge on his own. Wei Xuantian was silent. He realized that he had underestimated Zhou Xuanji's ambition. He let out a long sigh and said, If you don't fight for the throne, I'm afraid you won't live to see that day. His Majesty will ascend in at most 5 years. At that time, the great Zhou dynasty will belong to Zhou Yalong, and you will have nowhere to hide. Only then did the group realize that Wei Xuantian was here to help Zhou Xuanji. From what he said, could it be that Emperor Yan of Zhou wanted Zhou Xuanji to ascend to the throne? Zhou Xuanji continued to sit under the tree and said casually, His ascension is his business. I can fight against the sword monarch now. Do you think I will be afraid of Zhou Yalong? 5 years later, he would definitely be stronger. Would he be afraid of Zhou Yalong? He looked at Wei Xuantian and continued, Thank you for your kindness. If it wasn't for your help back then, I wouldn't be who I am today. Wei Xuantian was stunned. He asked in surprise, You remember what happened back then? But on second thought, this little prince had already become the world-famous sword emperor of Great Zhou. He might still remember his memories when he was 2 years old. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. You're really a monster. Even Zhou Yalong seems ordinary compared to you. No wonder His Majesty values you so much. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He did not like Wei Xuantian's tone. It was as if Emperor Yan of Zhou treated him very well. He asked, Is there anything else, Lord Wei? Wei Xuantian understood his intention to leave, so he smiled and turned to leave. After taking 3 steps, he suddenly stopped and said, Be careful, Xinhao Sect's hierarch already hates you. He sent Xinhao Sect's #1 genius, Huang Ming, to deal with you. With that, he turned into a wisp of white smoke and disappeared into thin air. Jiang Shui, Xiao Jinghong, and the others walked up to Zhou Xuanji. Master, Huang Ming is not simple. Back then, when he fought with Zhou Yalong, he was able to severely injure Zhou Yalong despite being ambushed. His strength is truly terrifying. Wei Xuantian can find us. Should we go somewhere else? Emperor Yan of Zhou wants to nurture you to be the Emperor of Great Zhou? Are you still refusing? Master, could it be a trap? He purposely tricked you into going to the Great Zhou Imperial City. Everyone surrounded Zhou Xuanji and continuously asked him questions, which gave Zhou Xuanji a headache. He stared at the group and said unpleasantly, "All of you, go and cultivate. I will make arrangements for everything." Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Congjian, Bei Xiao Wangjian, Han Shenhua, Huang Lianxin, and the little black snake were terrified immediately. They left quickly and dared not to stay any longer. Jiang Shui sat beside Zhou Xuanji. She did not ask anything but hugged his right arm quietly. "Seems like we should move." Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. Since Wei Xuantian could find him, there was a risk of him being exposed. The next plan was to recuperate and focus on cultivation, before waiting for the Empress to come to Merciful Melody Cliff. Jiang Shui leaned on his shoulder and smiled. "Actually, I quite like to travel the world with you and see everything in this world." Zhou Xuanji glanced at her and teased, "Yo, little girl, you have grown up." Jiang Shui heard him and sat up straight immediately. She pinched his waist and smiled dangerously. Time passed quickly. 6 days passed. Zhou Xuanji and the others set off immediately. Their destination was Juema Wasteland. Juema Wasteland did not belong to Great Zhou's territory. It was extremely chaotic. There were people from various empires, and there were even some powerful demons. If the Empress wanted to go to Merciful Melody Cliff, she had to pass through Juema Wasteland. Juema Wasteland was huge, even bigger than an empire. The group walked slowly, as though they were on a scenic tour. Along the way, Xiao Jinghong was in charge of teaching Zhao Congjian. Zhao Congjian was in charge of teaching Bei Xiao Wangjian, and Bei Xiao Wangjian was in charge of teaching Pope Lianxin. Of course, their teaching times were different. Zhou Xuanji would give some pointers occasionally, but most of the time, he was training with his sword. Han Shenhua's seal had been removed, but it would take some time for him to fully recover his cultivation. The little black snake, a big and small heir's power were also increasing steadily. For demons, other than cultivation, there was another way to grow stronger quickly, which was to eat other demons. The three of them had already started eating. Although Zhou Xuanji disliked them, he did not stop them. It was their nature after all. "Little black. Follow it. If anything happens to it, you can just wait to die." Zhou Xuanji took out the three-eyed drought rodent and instructed the little black snake. As its cultivation grew, the little black snake's body shrunk to 1/2 meter. What a wonder! The little black snake heard him and opened its eyes wide. "If it dies while walking, will you blame it on me?" it asked. Zhou Xuanji said expressionlessly, "If it dies, you die. If it lives, you live. If it has meat to eat, you have meat to eat too. In the future, both of you will coexist." The little black snake shuddered in fear and said with a trembling voice, "I didn't cause any trouble recently?" Zhou Xuanji walked past it and snorted, "I'm not in a good mood." The little black snake opened its eyes wide. What kind of reason was that? The others heard him and burst into laughter. And so, the little black snake escorted the three-eyed drought rodent and began their treasure hunt. The journey was long, and it was good to find some treasures. After the battle at the Sword Monarch's pinnacle, Zhou Xuanji realized how important it was to have a powerful physique. He decided to cultivate the Sword Qi Golden Body Incantation, which required the accumulation of many precious materials. And so, time passed quickly. 8 months passed quickly. Zhou Xuanji's cultivation broke through to inner pellet level 7 consecutively, and the Sword Qi Golden Body Incantation was still trying to reach level 4, Invincible Vajra. This day, they finally came to the border of Juema Wasteland. Standing on a hill and looking ahead, the wasteland was covered in sand and wind. There was no end in sight. Other than the mountains behind them, they could only see mountains in front of them. Xiao Jinghong sighed in amazement. "We are finally out. Speaking of which, this is my first time leaving Great Zhou's territory." The others were a little excited too. The Great Zhou Empire was huge, but it was very small compared to the northern wilderness region. Swoosh! At this moment, a flying dagger shot toward them with extreme speed. In an instant, it flew over 10,000 meters toward Zhou Xuanji and the others. Chapter 120. Zhou Xuanji swung his right hand and slashed with a sky-sundering emperor sword, accurately deflecting the flying dagger. Clang! Xiao Jinghong drew his sword and walked to the front. Zhao Tsongjian automatically retreated to the back of the group. This was something they had rehearsed before. To prevent the enemy from ambushing them from behind, Zhou Xuanji looked over with narrowed eyes and saw a figure walking over from the horizon. He was wearing a bamboo hat and black clothes, making it impossible to distinguish his true appearance. "May I know who you are?" Xiao Jinghong asked loudly. Immediately, Zhou Xuanji kicked his butt, which made him stumble and almost fall. He turned around angrily, ready to question who it was. Zhou Xuanji looked at him coldly and said, "He already attacked, and you're still asking who he is? Kill them all." Xiao Jinghong blushed with shame and immediately charged forward with his sword. Everyone continued to move forward at the same speed. Xiao Jinghong quickly started fighting with the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man held 2 flying daggers in each of his hands. His figure was like a ghost as he fought Xiao Jinghong to a standstill. "This person is also a nascent soul cultivator?" Northern Sword Valiant exclaimed. Feeling the strong pressure, his scalp went numb. The little black snake laid on the waiter's head and said weakly, "Outside of the Great Zhou, there are as many nascent soul cultivators as dogs?" Half a month ago, when the 3-eyed drought rodent went out to look for treasures, it ate something bad, causing it to starve for half a month. Han Shenbo said, "The Juema wasteland is extremely chaotic. Those who dare to hang around here are all very strong. Most of them are here to kill and rob." After all, he was a disciple of a sacred ground and had passed by the Juema wasteland before. With the tone of an experienced person he said, "Our situation is very rare. As long as we are careful, we won't easily encounter a nascent soul cultivator." When Zhou Xuanji and the others approached, Xiao Jinghong had already decapitated the man. He searched the corpse for storage bags and storage rings. This person could be considered wealthy. He had quite a lot of pills and spirit stones. Everyone continued moving forward. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, 2 burly men charged toward them with giant hammers in their hands. They were also at the nascent soul realm. Xiao Jinghong fought against 2 enemies at the same time. He suffered some light injuries, but he still managed to kill the 2 enemies. "Is this what you mean by rare?" The little black snake glared at Han Shenbo and questioned. After that, he looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "Master, this brat spoke rudely. I suggest that you give all of his food to me." Han Shenbo was anxious. What they ate was not grains, but medicinal pills and cultivation ingredients. Zhou Xuanji was quite generous to them. Other than the enchanted artifacts and energy techniques, all of Han Shenbo's spirit stones and pills were taken by Zhou Xuanji. He was still waiting to recover his strength, so why was his food confiscated? Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Your food for half a month belongs to it." Han Shenbo wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Zhou Xuanji was too domineering. Zhou Xuanji ignored him and walked straight to Xiao Jinghong's side. "Let's find a place to stop. Our target is to ambush the Empress of Great Zhou, not to cross Juema wasteland." Xiao Jinghong nodded, and then he leaped up and flew towards the horizon on his sword in search of a suitable place to stay. Jiang Shui walked over and asked mysteriously, "Xuanji, do you feel that something is wrong? I always feel that something is staring at us." Zhou Xuanji looked around. Other than them, there was no trace of anyone else, nor were there any demons. His cultivation was higher than Jiang Shui's, but he did not feel anything wrong. Jiang Shui might have been too nervous. He shook his head and smiled. "Don't worry. There are so many of us. How can we run into ghosts?" Speaking of which, he had come to this mythical world for so long. He had seen astral infant, demons, but he had never seen a ghost. In the Great Zhou Empire, it was rare to hear about ghosts. It was really strange. A big and small air were bored. They flapped their wings and circled in the sky, playing around. They flew extremely high. If one did not look up, one might miss them. After a while, Xiao Jinghong still had not returned. Suddenly, a convoy of 4 carriages came from the front. There were 10 soul fountain cultivators escorting the convoy. Zhou Xuanji and the others sat on the hill and did not hide. The convoy passed by them quickly. "Wait!" At this moment, A cold voice came from one of the carriages, and the convoy stopped. The curtains of the carriage's window were pulled open, and a beautiful lady popped her head out. Her face was cold as she said, "None of you look like evil people, and your actions seem to be the first time you came to Juemal Wasteland. Let me give you a piece of advice. Return to Great Zhou quickly and don't come out for a while." "Why?" Jiang Shui asked curiously. The Sword Emperor of Great Zhou came to Juemal Wasteland. Xinhao sect has sent out a wanted order, and the entire Juemal Wasteland is searching for the Sword Emperor. Xinhao sect's top genius, Huang Ming, who is as talented as Zhou Yalong, claimed to kill the Sword Emperor with his own hands. The beautiful lady replied. Her eyes were filled with passion and admiration. She paused and continued, "You should know who the Sword Emperor of Great Zhou is. You came from Great Zhou after all. With the Sword Emperor's temper, he will surely fight with Xinhao sect. By then, blood will flow in Juemal Wasteland like a river. You should stay away." After that, she retracted her head. The carriages continued to move forward toward Great Zhou's territory. The group's expression was strange. Huang Lianxin could not hold back her laughter. "Sword Emperor of Great Zhou? Isn't that Zhou Xuanji?" Ever since the battle at the Sword Monarch's pinnacle, Zhou Xuanji had a new nickname, the Sword Emperor of Great Zhou. Although the title of Sword God Zhou was domineering, it was given to him by himself. The Sword Emperor of Great Zhou was given to him by the people of Great Zhou. It was a completely different title. TSK. Seems like you have a lot of women who admire you," Jiang Shui said profoundly. The group heard her and burst out in laughter. Zhou Xuanji said proudly, "Of course. I'm handsome and powerful. Which woman would not like me?" "Shameless." Jiang Shui rolled her eyes at him. She turned around and picked up the little black snake, preparing to vent her anger on it. "Why is it me again?" The little black snake cried out in despair. Next, it was rolled into a ball and thrown onto the ground. Zhao Tsongjian said with a frown, "Strange. How did Xinhao sect know that we would come to Juemal Wasteland?" Along the way, they did not sense anyone following them. Zhou Xuanji was thinking about this question too. He killed Ta Chi Xue, so Xinhao sect must be crazy to kill him. Han Shenbo said, "In this world, there are many people who are proficient in the art of divination. Even without seeing or hearing with their own eyes, they can still divine the whereabouts of others. Wei Xuantian is one of them." When he said this, he was very careful and did not dare to act cool. So that's why. No wonder Wei Xuantian knew where they were. Zhou Xuanji came to a realization. He looked at Han Shenbo with dissatisfaction. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Sensing his gaze, Han Shenbo's body trembled. "I said something wrong again?" Another half an hour passed. Xiao Jinghong finally returned. After he landed, he said excitedly, "Revered teacher, guess what I found?" Chapter 121. Seeing that Xiao Jinghong was unusually excited, Zhou Xuanji could not help but be curious. He guessed, "Found a sword." Xiao Jinghong, known as the Sword Noble, loved swords. Other than swords, he loved nothing else. He even wanted to turn himself into a sword. Xiao Jinghong smiled mysteriously. "No. Follow me." After that, he turned around and left in a hurry. Did this guy see a woman bathing? Why is he in such a hurry? Is he afraid of missing something good? The little black snake, whose face was covered in dust, mumbled. Zhou Xuanji whistled, and a big and small air swooped down. The group followed Xiao Jinghong and were curious about what he found. They traveled for hundreds of miles. They came to a place where there were many hills. Looking ahead, the hills were undulating like waves, and there was no end in sight. Zhou Xuanji noticed that there were many red ants crawling on the ground. Some of them were almost as big as his pinky finger. His heart stirred as he inexplicably thought of something. Zhao Tsongjian walked at the back. He scanned the surroundings and said, "Could this be the land of the ants? Everyone, be careful. An ant colony that can survive in Juemal Wasteland is definitely not simple." The others nodded. People often used ants to describe the weak. In fact, an elephant could be eaten by too many ants. Xiao Jinghong walked in front and was already a dozen meters away from the group. After entering deep into the hills, they were still moving forward. Finally, they stopped in front of an inconspicuous hill. The three-eyed drought rodent in Zhou Xuanji's arms sprang out suddenly. It jumped onto the hill and began digging. Soon, it sank into the soil. The hill was 6 meters tall. The soil on it was mostly sand and rocks, and there were few weeds. Xiao Jinghong pointed at the hill and said, "I found some rare treasures with my mind. They can be used to forge legendary swords." It was related to swords indeed. Zhou Xuanji curled his lip and was not interested. He had the supreme legendary sword system, so he did not care much about the materials used to forge swords. But Zhao Zongjian and the rest were very interested. Zhou Xuanji sat down on the hill beside him and instructed, "Little Black, look after me. If an ant crawls on me, I will throw you into the ant nest." The little black snake heard him and shuddered. Just thinking about the feeling of being bitten by tens of thousands of ants made it shiver. It immediately came to Zhou Xuanji's side and looked around vigilantly. Jiang Shui and Han Shenbo sat on either side of Zhou Xuanji. After the three-eyed drought rodent went down, Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Zongjian, and Bei Xiao Wangjian started to dig the soil, preparing to go underground. "Xuanji, do you really not feel like you're being watched?" Jiang Shui suddenly pulled the corner of Zhou Xuanji's shirt and asked anxiously. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at her and said, "Don't be so suspicious, we have so many people." Han Shenbo sat and said with a smile, "Although there are many strange things in the Juema wasteland, as long as we are careful." Before he could finish his sentence, he stopped. Zhou Xuanji and Jiang Shui looked at him instinctively. His face was filled with fear, and his body was trembling slightly. Following his gaze, Zhou Xuanji and Zhou Xuanji did not see anyone, only mountains. Zhou Xuanji slapped the back of his head and cursed, "You dare to scare me?" Jiang Shui hugged Zhou Xuanji's arm tightly. She had goosebumps all over her body. Han Shenbo stuttered, "Don't you see? There are 2 little girls who had their stomachs sliced. Their eyes are bleeding, and they are looking at us." Zhou Xuanji looked over again. "Where?" The little black snake cursed, "You dare to say such things in broad daylight? Master, give me his food for the next 2 months if—" Its voice stopped abruptly. Its entire body straightened, and its eyes opened wide. Zhou Xuanji looked over, but there was no one around. He was furious. He took out the chicken-slaying sword and said, "Little Black, you dare to scare me?" The little black snake said with a trembling voice, "No. So many ghosts. They are coming toward us and they are everywhere." A big and small air growled uneasily. Zhou Xuanji realized that something was wrong. These 2 cowards did not dare to lie to him. Moreover, Jiang Shui said that someone was watching her. Could there really be ghosts? Zhou Xuanji immediately took out the ghost curse sword and cursed, "I believe in science." After that, he slashed with his sword. A wave of ghostly cries and wolf howls resounded, and the sword chi swept out in all directions. "Ah!" A shrill cry came, which sent chills down Zhou Xuanji's spine. He could not see ghosts, which made the situation even more horrifying. A group of ghosts in broad daylight? "Master, stop!" At this moment, Huang Lianxin, who had been silent all this while, suddenly screamed. She quickly leaped in front of Zhou Xuanji to stop him from swinging his sword. Zhou Xuanji frowned and looked at her warily. Could it be that this lass was possessed by a ghost? "They are my clansmen," Huang Lianxin sobbed with tears in her eyes. "Clansmen?" Zhou Xuanji was stunned. Jiang Shui and Han Shenbo were confused too. Huang Lianxin wiped her tears and said, "The city we are in is at the border of Great Zhou. Next to it is a kingdom. Strictly speaking, it does not belong to Great Zhou. It is isolated from the world, and everyone in the city belongs to one clan. Because of this, after Zhou Yalong massacred the entire city, there was no commotion at all." Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked, "Is your ghost city nearby?" Huang Lianxin shook her head and said, "It's on the other side of Great Zhou. It's far from here." If so, why would the ghosts of Huang Lianxin's clansmen appear here? They stopped. The little black snake cried out in surprise. "It seems like these ghosts are my clansmen. I did not expect to meet my descendant here." At this moment, a cold voice came, as though it came from the depths of hell. A gust of cold wind blew. Zhou Xuanji and the others turned around and saw a man in a blood-red robe standing in the air. He was tall and had white hair. His face was cold, and his eyes were purplish red. He wore a silver crown with beads and a pair of wings made from demonic qi. The wingspan was 30 meters. Who are you? Han Shenhua asked with a deep voice. Zhou Xuanji looked a little solemn. He felt that this person was more powerful than Xiahou Gongji. Although he was not as powerful as the Sword Monarch, he was still powerful. Could it be? I am Huang Ming from Xinhao sect. The man in a blood-red robe said indifferently. A scythe appeared in his right hand. The scythe was blood-red and was surrounded by strands of black wind. Its murderous aura soared into the sky. The top genius of Xinhao sect, Huang Ming. Everyone's expression changed and prepared for battle. Huang Ming looked at Huang Lianxin and said, Do you know why Zhou Yalong massacred your clansmen? Because you are my descendant. He was severely injured by me, so he took revenge. Having heard that, Huang Lianxin's pupils contracted. Her body trembled and she could not believe her ears. She was the descendant of a powerhouse from an evil sect? Zhou Xuanji, Jiang Shui, Han Shenhua, and the little black snake were all stunned. They did not expect Huang Lianxin to have such a background. Hold on. Huang Lianxin had the talent to see through all things. She could not be an ordinary person. Chapter 122. We were blocked by this guy the moment we came out. We're so unlucky. The little black snake sighed, but he did not panic. He looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, Take out the God Emperor sword and slay him. I have faith in you. Piak. Zhou Xuanji slashed back with the ghost curse sword's cross-section, which sent the snake flying away as though he was hitting it with a ruler. Impudent. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself while staring at Huang Ming. Huang Ming was not as powerful as the Sword Monarch, so he was not afraid. But when he thought about how he was going to become a cripple again, he felt a pain in the ass. At this moment, Huang Ming stared at Huang Lianxin and said, You have the Ghost Emperor Divine Eyes. Come back. I will nurture you to be the new chief of the Ghost Emperor tribe. Ghost Emperor Divine Eyes. Huang Lianxin's body trembled and instinctively touched her eyes. Jiang Shui immediately hugged her arm and said, Sister Lianxin, didn't you say that you will always be with us? The little black snake crawled over and said, You really know how to boast. Your Ghost Emperor tribe is gone, and only the two of you are left. She will be the chief, and you will be her ancestor. Huang Ming glanced at him with a murderous intent, which frightened him and quickly hid beside Zhou Xuanji. Boom! Boom! Two silhouettes burst out from the ground and landed in front of Zhou Xuanji. It was Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Congjian. They sensed the shocking murderous aura on the ground and immediately came out to help. So powerful! Zhao Congjian squinted his eyes and mumbled. Huang Lianxin took a deep breath and patted the back of Jiang Shui's hand. She smiled and said, Of course. I promise to follow you for life, so I won't go back on my word. Without you, I'm afraid I would have died in the Shady Mountain stronghold. Having heard her, Huang Ming frowned. He raised his scythe, and demonic qi surged. Billowing thunderclouds gathered around him. Numerous ghostly shadows appeared. They levitated with their feet off the ground, maintaining the image they had before they died. Each of them looked horrifying. At a glance, there were at least tens of thousands of them. These vengeful ghosts surrounded them tightly as though they would pounce on them any time. You are Xinhao Pontiff Ming? Xiao Jinghong asked. How did you find us? Could it really be as Han Shenhua had said, that it had been deduced? Huang Ming ignored him and stared at Huang Lianxin. If you don't repent, I will take away your Ghost Emperor Divine Eye. Dazzling. Huang Lianxin did not panic. She held Jiang Shui and walked to Zhou Xuanji's side. She looked back at Huang Ming and said, Perhaps you really are my ancestor, but I have a master now, and he is stronger than you. With these words, Zhou Xuanji felt good and straightened his back. Huang Ming squinted his eyes and swung his scythe at Zhou Xuanji and the others. The demonic aura turned into countless sharp arrows and poured down like a torrential rain. Zhou Xuanji directly took out the God Emperor sword and created the God Emperor. He slashed out, and the black arrow instantly dissipated. Huang Ming's eyes widened as an invisible sword qi rushed towards him, causing him to dodge immediately. Zhou Xuanji's expression changed slightly. He instinctively looked at his God Emperor sword. His right hand trembled slightly, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. What's going on? Why did the backlash come so quickly? Xueqi was shocked in his heart. His injuries were already healed. The ghost Emperor Qi from the previous time is still lingering in your body. It has yet to dissipate completely. It needs time. The sword spirit reminded, which made Xueqi frown. He felt that he would be crippled after 8 slashes. In the air, Huang Ming's face was hideous. Sword God Zhou, just you wait. Although I don't know why you came to Juema Wasteland, Xinhao sect will not let you step out of Juema Wasteland. After that, he turned into a wave of demonic qi and dissipated in the air. He left just like that. Xueqi was stunned and quickly stored the God Emperor sword. Zhao Tsongjian smiled and said, "This brat is sensible. Or else, he will surely die here." The little black snake snorted. "Didn't you boast about how powerful Huang Ming was?" The others heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Huang Ming was no match for Xueqi. Xiao Jinghong exclaimed in admiration, "The God Emperor sword is indeed the sword of an emperor." "All right, master. There are 6 pieces of geocentric flame iron below. You can have 2, and the 4 of us can have 1 each." In the team, other than Xueqi, there were only Xiao Jinghong, Bei Xiao Wangjian, Zhao Tsongjian, and Huang Lianxin. Xueqi asked, "Is the geocentric iron good?" Before Xiao Jinghong could answer, Zhao Tsongjian rushed to answer, "Of course it's great, it can forge magical equipment of level 5 and above." At this moment, Northern Valiant Sword also broke through the ground. After they landed, the 3-eyed drought rodent crawled out from his arms and quickly ran to Xueqi's feet. Northern Sword Valiant waved his right hand, and 6 long stones that were 2 feet long appeared in front of everyone. Earth Core Flame Iron. It looked like a long stone, but upon closer inspection, one would discover that its surface was suffused with a metallic luster. If an ordinary person saw this stone, they would probably ignore it. "Let's leave this place first," Xueqi nodded and said. He urgently needed to become stronger. Only by becoming stronger could he use the God Emperor sword as he pleased. In a valley deep within Juema Wasteland, hundreds of thousands of evil cultivators gathered. Huang Ming sat on a giant rock. Demonic qi that looked like dragons and snakes coiled around his body. He opened his eyes slowly and said, "God Emperor sword?" No wonder it's the legendary sword that pulled the sword monarch down from his pedestal. Just when he finished speaking, a demonic shadow descended from the sky. It was exactly the same as him. This demonic shadow quickly entered his body. Before this, he used this demonic shadow to test Xueqi. Below him, a middle-aged man in a black robe asked, "Revered teacher, when are we going to act?" Hundreds of thousands of evil cultivators raised their heads in anticipation. Now that Sword God Zhou was famous across the world, who did not want to kill him? If they could kill Sword God Zhou, they might become famous across the world. Huang Ming muttered, "Let's wait a little longer. The Sword Monarch may look magnanimous, but he is intolerant. Only with Sword God Zhou's death can he rebuild his reputation. Besides, Sword God Zhou offended the Empress. With the Empress and Zhou Yalong's character, we can use Sword God Zhou to lure the snake out of its hole. Compared to Xueqi, he wanted to kill Zhou Yalong more. Ta Qixue was Ta Tianqin's grandson. Their relationship was ordinary. He purposely spread the news to let the outside world think that he and Sword God Zhou were irreconcilable, so as to lure Zhou Yalong out. Zhou Yalong was talented, but he did not have many achievements. If he could kill Sword God Zhou, Zhou Yalong's position as the emperor would be secured. The evil cultivators heard him and could only suppress their excitement. More than a month later. Analyze that the sword owner has reached 17 years old. Gotcha started. Ding! Congratulations, the sword owner obtained gold, falling flowers, centenary golden embryo pill, 4 level 1 spirit stones. Xueqi, who was cultivating on a tree, opened his eyes. 4 level 1 spirit stones? Are you trying to get rid of a beggar? Xueqi was speechless. He took out falling flowers and wanted to see what this gold-grade legendary sword could do. Since the sword owner already has many legendary swords, I will now announce the higher grades of the legendary swords. Chapter 123. Announce the higher grades of legendary swords. Zhou Xuanji was looking forward to it and began waiting. The little black snake climbed up the tree trunk suddenly and flicked its forked tongue. There were 2 small bumps on its head, which made it look even more terrifying. "Master, I have a request." It spoke seriously and kept its distance from Zhou Xuanji. At this distance, Zhou Xuanji should not be able to hit it with his sword. A sword suddenly appeared in Zhou Xuanji's hand. It was Heavenly Flower Shower, which scared the little black snake so much that it fled far away. He looked at the little black snake suspiciously before turning his attention back to Heavenly Flower Shower. The sword was golden in color and was engraved with many patterns. As the blade shook, it looked as though countless heavenly flowers were falling. 3 lines of words appeared before his eyes. Sword name, Heavenly Flower Shower grade. Gold description, Heavenly Flower Shower. The sword chi transforms into flowers. It is extremely confusing and can easily trap the enemy in an illusion. Not bad, Zhou Xuanji thought. Ever since he obtained the God Emperor sword, gold-grade legendary swords were no longer in his eyes. He asked in his heart, why is it not announced yet? Currently, the grades of legendary swords that can be announced, from bottom to top, are ordinary or iron, bronze, silver, gold, amethyst, glorious gold, heavenly soul, intimidating spirit, celestial shaking, god slaying, and Armageddon. As for the higher grades, the sword owner needs to become more powerful before he is qualified to know. Heavenly soul, intimidating spirit, celestial shaking, god slaying, Armageddon. All of them sounded so domineering. Zhou Xuanji blinked. He felt that he could travel freely in the mortal realm with just the glorious gold legendary swords. How horrifying would these grades be? God-slaying legendary swords. Could they really slay gods? Armageddon legendary swords that could destroy all living things in the world? The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. The supreme legendary sword system was indeed powerful. At this moment, an ear-piercing sound came. They were in a small forest. The trees here were tall, and there were small lakes in the forest. It was suitable for living. It was Zhao Zongjian. He flew into the forest on his sword and quickly ran to the tree where Zhou Xuanji was. "Master, the Empress is leaving Great Zhou," he said excitedly. With this, Zhou Xuanji looked at him, and so did the others. They came to Juema Wasteland to attack the Empress. How could they not be excited after hearing this? Xiao Jinghong hurriedly asked, "Who's accompanying them?" The Empress of Great Zhou's power had always been a mystery. She was definitely powerful, but not as powerful as the Sword Monarch. Zhao Zongjian said, First-class State General, Shitan Changshi. Shitan Changshi was a name that shook the entire Zhou dynasty. The war god of the Great Zhou dynasty. Back then, when the Great Zhou Empire was facing the threat of annihilation, he risked his life to fight the generals of the various empires and almost died. He forcefully held on until Emperor Yan of Zhou broke through to the Great Realization stage. After breaking through to the Great Realization stage, Emperor Yan of Zhou used his peerless and tyrannical strength to suppress everything and lead the Great Zhou Empire from the brink of destruction to prosperity. Shitan Changshi's achievements were unparalleled, and he had been promoted and taught by Emperor Yan of Zhou. Now, within the entire Great Zhou, his strength could be ranked in the top 5, and he was not any weaker than the Sword Monarch. Zhou Xuanji could only injure the Sword Monarch with the God Emperor sword, but he could not defeat him. Now that he was facing Shitan Changshi, who was on par with him, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill the Empress of the Great Zhou. Zhou Xuanji asked with squinted eyes. "When are they moving?" Zhao Zongjian muttered. "I'm not sure. They are still in preparation, but the plan is set. The news has been spread. I heard that the Empress will invite the demigods of the merciful Melody Cliff to Great Zhou to preach to the people. This is a joyous event for the entire Great Zhou." Zhou Xuanji frowned. If he were to stop this, wouldn't he become a sinner of Great Zhou? But he did not mind. After killing the Empress, he was going to leave. What's the shortest time? Zhou Xuanji continued to ask. It seemed that he had to seize the time and become more powerful. The shortest would be half a year. When they come out it would be 8 months. Zhao Zongjian thought. Such a big event could not be prepared in a few days. They still had to prepare the gifts after all. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said to the group, "Did you hear that? Cultivate well. Don't slack off during this period of time. It will be a battle of life and death. Yes, the group replied and left. Not far away, the little black snake mumbled, Shitan Chongsha. That's a ruthless person. He loves to eat dragons. I must be careful. On the tree, Zhou Xuanji took out the centennial golden embryo pill. According to the sword spirit's explanation, this was a divine medicine for tempering one's body. The golden embryo was formed by the astral infant after one's body reached its limit. He flipped his right hand, and a golden pill the size of a ping-pong ball appeared in his palm. Such a big one? I can't even swallow it. He forcefully broke it into half, put one half into his mouth, and began to swallow. In an instant, a stream of heat flowed down his throat and exploded instantly. He immediately activated the inner energy technique of Sword Qi Golden Body Incantation to absorb the spiritual qi from the heavens and the earth. Whoosh, waves of spiritual qi flowed into his body, and the leaves on the tree swayed continuously. Soon, countless fallen leaves danced down, and the scene was beautiful. Jiang Shui, who was cultivating her spell, looked back and saw Zhou Xuanji concentrating on his cultivation. He looked like a powerful cultivator. She breathed a sigh of relief and began to move her hands to continue cultivating lightning spells. Now, she had already learned spells of all 5 elements and began to learn spells of other elements. This was arranged by Zhou Xuanji. Mastering spells of different attributes would come in handy in any difficult and dangerous environment in the future. Jiang Shui was looking forward to it. She wanted to become the most powerful support. Half a day later. Boom! Zhou Xuanji broke through to inner pellet level 8. And the surface of his body turned golden. He looked like a golden man, and the white dragon golden robe on his body fluttered continuously. Everyone turned to look at him. Golden invincible. Great accomplishment in physical cultivation. Han Shenbo mumbled to himself, and he looked a little dazed. Dual cultivation of energy and physique. It seemed that it would be difficult for him to escape from Zhou Xuanji. That's right. Zhou Xuanji had already broken through to level 4 of Sword Qi Golden Body Incantation, Golden Invincible. His physical strength had already reached an extremely horrifying level. According to his estimation, he had at least the strength of 1,000 bulls. The strength of 1,000 bulls was equivalent to the strength of 10,000 people. In the northern wilderness region, the strength of 10 people was equivalent to the strength of a bull. The most important thing was his physical defense. It was already a piece of cake for him to be impervious to weapons. At the same time, his spirit energy grew tremendously, and the power of his sword qi doubled. He opened his eyes suddenly, and 2 streams of sword qi shot out from his eyes. Bum! Bum! The 2 streams of sword qi smashed into the grass and created 2 small holes. Grass flew everywhere. The group opened their eyes wide. Xiao Jinghong breathed rapidly and said, Sword qi emitted from the eyes is more powerful than spitting sword qi from the mouth. Zhou Xuanji got up slowly and jumped to the ground. His legs crushed the ground, and he landed on the ground like a giant elephant. All of you, push me together. See if you can move me. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. Having heard him, Xiao Jinghong, Han Shenbo, Zhao Tsongjian, and Bei Xiao Wangjian walked up excitedly. Chapter 124. Zhou Xuanji opened up his arms. No matter how hard Xiao Jinghong, Bei Xiao Wangjian, Zhao Tsongjian, and Han Shenbo pushed, he could not move at all. Did you guys not eat? He said proudly. The 4 heard him and immediately became anxious. They channeled their spirit energy and pushed Zhou Xuanji back a meter. Then they stopped. The 4 pushed until their faces were red, but they could not move Zhou Xuanji. Finally, they gave up and could only sigh. Zhao Tsongjian said hesitantly, should we train our physique too? Xiao Jinghong shook his head. He was only focused on the sword. Bei Xiao Wangjian had trained in physique cultivation before, so he knew that he was not talented enough. Han Shenbo sighed, physique training is extremely difficult. It will take up a lot of time for us to improve our cultivation. The golden glow on Zhou Xuanji's body receded. He smiled and said, seems like we need a tank. What's a tank? Han Shenbo asked curiously. At this moment, Jiang Shui and Huang Lianxin walked over. Jiang Shui said with a smile, a tank is someone with high defense and high HP. He's responsible for blocking most of the enemy's attacks. Xuanji said before that a perfect team needs assassins, warriors, tanks, archers, sorcerers, and support. You should all know about assassins. They are existences that can assassinate the enemy in one strike. Warriors are the main battle force. Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Tsongjian are like warriors now. I'm like a sorcerer and support. For archers, you sword cultivators can be them too. It's a long-range attack anyway. Looking at Jiang Shui's eloquent explanation, Zhou Xuanji wanted to laugh. He could not help but think back to his previous life. He could no longer play those games, so he could only cultivate. Xiao Jinghong rubbed his chin and muttered, Meng Tianlang is suitable to be a tank. If that guy is here, we can nurture him. He could not forget his old lover. Huang Lianxin tilted her head and thought, if that's the case, we really should find an archer. Using sword chi from a distance is still too slow. Zhou Xuanji smiled. If it's a tank, it's easier. He looked at the little black snake who was rolling on the ground not far away, and said, from today onwards, everyone beat Little Black up to train its defense. When the little black snake heard this, it hurriedly arched its body like a rubber band. It shouted, why should I do that? I'm not convinced. How can I be a tank when I'm so small? I can't block the attacks for you at all. Zhou Xuanji ignored him and said, a big and small heir have potential too. The demon race is most suited to be tanks. Everyone, nurture them well in the future. Everyone nodded. They chatted for a while more before disbanding and continuing to cultivate. After breaking through to golden invincibility, although Zhou Xuanji's power had increased tremendously, it was still not enough. How powerful was Shitan Changshe? He had to work harder. 5 months later, Zhou Xuanji broke through to inner pellet level 9 and was one step closer to Soul Fountain. Breaking through to the Spirit Spring stage at the age of 18, if this news were to spread, it would definitely shock the world. In these 5 months, they encountered enemies from time to time. The bounty on Xinhao Sect's head was still up, but the devil cultivators of Xinhao Sect never came. Zhou Xuanji and the others sent people to fight according to the strength of their enemies to train their battle awareness. Even Jiang Shui had participated in the battle. All in all, everyone was becoming stronger. This day, Zhao Tsongjian came back after getting some information. Master, Zhou Yalong returned to the capital. The Empress might be delayed for another month. But the time has been confirmed. She will move out in at most 4 months. She will be accompanied by 100 elite royal guards. The weakest of them is at Astral Infant. Zhao Tsongjian cupped his fist and said to Zhou Xuanji, who was internalizing qi on the tree. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, take a rest. Zhao Tsongjian turned around and left. He was very excited, as though he could not wait for the battle to begin. If they succeeded in killing the Empress, how earth-shattering would that be? At this moment, thunderclouds gathered. A ball of demonic qi flew toward him quickly. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes, and the others were on their guard. This aura, Xinhao Sect, Huang Ming. The demonic qi stopped above the forest and gathered into Huang Ming's appearance. He looked down at Zhou Xuanji and said, Sword God Zhou, let's work together to kill the Empress. How about that? Having heard him, Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and asked, you want to take revenge on Zhou Yalong? Huang Ming said expressionlessly, Zhou Yalong slaughtered my clansman, so I killed his mother. It's karma. Let's see if he feels bad. Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, and the others gathered together and looked at him warily. Of course, but the Empress has to be killed by me. Zhou Xuanji said calmly. If Huang Ming could hold Shitan Changshe back, the pressure on him would be even smaller. Huang Ming nodded and said, this matter is only against the Empress. After this, we will leave and rest for a while before we fight again. How about that? Xinhao Sect's mission was still there, so he had to deal with Zhou Xuanji, of course. Zhou Xuanji was surprised in his heart. This guy is so principled? He did not trust Huang Ming completely. How could someone from an evil sect believe a one-sided statement? Before we act, I will send someone to inform you. After he said this, Huang Ming left, and the thunderclouds in the sky dispersed. Xiao Jinghong walked under the tree and reminded, Revered teacher, we have to take precautions against this. Han Shenhua said, Huang Ming has a good reputation. I rarely heard of him doing despicable things. He is a man of his word and never breaks his promise. The others followed suit and expressed their opinions. Xueqi sat on the tree and looked toward the horizon. When the time comes, just keep an eye out, he said. The Empress of Great Zhou. Your retribution is coming. Are you ready? 4.5 months later, Xueqi broke through to inner pellet level 10. A Xinhao sect's evil cultivator came to the forest and shouted, Sword God Zhou, my master is asking for your help. The target is coming out from his isolated cultivation. He looked a little nervous. He had heard of Sword God Zhou's fame after all. He could even injure the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. With such power, he was not weaker than Huang Ming. Soon, Zhou Xuanji, Jiang Shui, Shao Jinghong, Zhao Congjian, Han Shenhua, Bei Shao Wangjian, Huang Lianxin, Little Black, and a big and small heir walked out from the forest. Lead the way. Zhou Xuanji, who was walking in the middle of the group, said calmly. Having heard him, the evil cultivator immediately turned around and walked ahead. At the same time, within the borders of Great Zhou, at the border of a kingdom, a group of carriages was moving ahead. 100 armored royal guards of Great Zhou rode on fierce-looking horses. At the front was the first-rank state general, Shitan Changshe. Shitan Changshe was tall and muscular. He wore a suit of golden armor and had a resolute face. There were 2 parallel scars on his cheeks, which looked like 2 centipedes. He wore a golden crown with 2 phoenix wings on his head. He held the reins and looked ahead expressionlessly. General, this trip to Merciful Melody Cliff will be filled with danger. A royal guard beside him said with a tinge of worry on his face. What are you afraid of? With me around, whoever dares to come will die. Shitan Changshe said expressionlessly. He paused and continued. Moreover, a ruthless guy is waiting for us at the end of Juema Wasteland. With his protection, even if Ta Tianchen comes personally, he will not be able to do anything to us. Chapter 125. Powerful guy? Who? The Great Zhou Royal Guard beside Shitan Changshe asked curiously. How powerful must someone be to resist Ta Tianchen? Great realization. As far as they knew, Mahayana cultivators were like earth gods. Shitan Changshe laughed lightly. Baba Blade Master. Have you heard of him? The royal guard looked confused. Apparently, he had not heard of him before. If you have traveled outside of Great Zhou, you will know how powerful this person is. He is famous in the entire northern wilderness region. He is also the Empress' elder brother. Back then, he and His Majesty were brothers. It was a legend in the northern wilderness region. Shitan Changshe said with a smile. As he recalled the past, he sighed. The Empress' elder brother, Emperor Yan of Zhou's adopted brother. The royal guard heard him and was immediately filled with respect. He was also curious about Baba Blade Master. General Changshe, don't put your hopes on others. You must not let your guard down. At this moment, a cold and noble female voice came from behind. Her tone was slightly dignified, like that of an empress. The voice came from a carriage in the middle of the group. The carriage looked exquisite, and a blue crystal ball the size of a human head was mounted on it. Shitan Changshe smiled awkwardly. Don't worry, Empress. I will not be distracted. He turned around and said. After that, he looked ahead and dared not to continue chatting. Juema Wasteland. Zhou Xuanji and the rest followed the evil cultivator to a small hill. The evil cultivator moved his right hand and chanted. A huge hole appeared on the hill. Follow me. The evil cultivator waved his hand and entered the hole. Zhou Xuanji looked at a big and small heir and said, Wait nearby. If you encounter an enemy, fly up. A big and small heir nodded and left. The group entered the hole. Below them were tunnels that extended in all directions. They were 4 meters tall and 3 meters wide, and there were many spirit stones that shone brightly in the surroundings, illuminating the tunnels. Xinhao sect is really persistent, Shao Jinghong said in amazement. Looking at these tunnels, it was obvious that they had prepared for a long time. The evil cultivator leading the way said proudly, Of course. We dug for a whole year. There is a spell formation above that can block out divine senses. When the time comes, the Empress will surely ambush us. Bei Shao Wangjian asked, How many people did Xinhao sect prepare? 100,000. They are all elites of Xinhao sect. They are spread out in all the tunnels so that it is easier to locate the Empress of Great Zhou. The demonic cultivator replied. He didn't hide anything because Huang Ming had instructed him to answer truthfully. Since they were working together, if they were not honest, it would be easy for problems to occur. Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. Xinhao sect's plan was really meticulous. They thought more than he did. After this matter was over, it was better to leave Juema wasteland as soon as possible to avoid being killed by Xinhao sect. An hour later, Zhou Xuanji and the others finally came before Huang Ming. This was an underground plaza. Thousands of demonic cultivators were excavating spirit stones while Huang Ming sat on a boulder and cultivated. Sensing the aura of Zhou Xuanji and the others, he opened his eyes. Sword God Zhou, you're here. Cultivate here and wait for the Empress of Great Zhou to pass by. Huang Ming said calmly as if he was talking about a trivial matter. Zhou Xuanji nodded before leading the group to a corner and sitting down. Zhao Tsongjian said softly, "Everyone, be careful. This is the best place to ambush me." The little black snake stared at him and said unpleasantly, "Are you reminding them?" Zhou Xuanji sat down with his legs crossed next to Jiang Shui. He said with a deep voice, "Okay, stop talking nonsense. When everyone cultivates, leave one person behind to observe the situation." Huang Lianxin looked around. With the Ghost Emperor divine eyes, she could see through the rocks to see if there was an ambush. Xiao Jinghong and Han Shenhua were observing their surroundings too. They were looking for the best place to escape. Huang Ming continued to cultivate. Although the other demonic cultivators looked at Zhou Xuanji and the others occasionally, they did not show any murderous intent but continued to excavate spirit stones. Next, there were demonic cultivators reporting the situation every day. The Empress of Great Zhou had yet to enter Juema wasteland. Until 20 days later. Report. My lord, we found the Empress convoy. An evil cultivator flew up to Huang Ming and knelt down before him and reported. Having heard him, Huang Ming opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with a terrifying murderous intent. He got up straight away and cried out, "Everyone, head to the tunnel below the target." Thousands of demonic cultivators put down the digging tools in their hands and followed the reporting evil cultivator to lead the way. Huang Ming looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "Let's go." Zhou Xuanji nodded and followed the main group. After an hour, they finally reached their destination. The tunnel was filled with Xinhao sect's demonic cultivators. Huang Ming flew over the demonic cultivators' heads. He stopped and looked up. He scanned with his mind and saw the situation above. "Wait for my command. Leave Shitan Chongsher to me. Sword God Zhou will kill the Empress." Huang Ming lowered his head and ordered. Zhou Xuanji was also giving out orders. "After we get out, don't join the battle." Zhou Xuanji instructed. Beishao Wangjian, Jiang Shui, Huang Lianxin, and the little black snake were only powerful enough to become cannon fodder if they joined the battle. The group nodded. At the same time on the surface, Great Zhou's convoy continued to move forward. Shitan Chongsher suddenly took out a heavenly halberd and looked ahead with a slight frown. He could already sense an indistinct murderous intent. "Everyone, be on guard. The first wave of enemy attack is coming," he said with a deep voice. As Great Zhou's first-grade state general, he had been through many wars. More than 10 million people had died in his hands. He was extremely sensitive to murderous auras. Looking ahead, there was nothing but flat land in all directions. Not even trees could be seen. The danger could only come from two directions. Boom! The ground in front of him exploded suddenly. A blood-colored silhouette shot out and charged toward Shitan Chongsher with extreme speed. It was Huang Ming. With a giant scythe in his hand, he slashed at Shitan Chongsher furiously. Shitan Chongsher's pupils contracted suddenly. He raised his heavenly halberd to block. Clang! The sound of the weapons clashing was sharp and clear. At this moment, the ground around the convoy exploded as well. Silhouettes dashed out from the ground like a myriad of arrows. "Empress of Great Zhou! It's time for you to die!" Zhou Xuanji's cold and murderous voice resounded across the clouds. With a sky-sundering emperor sword in his hand, his white robe fluttered in the wind as he slashed toward the carriage where the Empress was. The power of the ancient sword emperor. Tempest slash. The sword Qi, which was hundreds of meters long, descended with a domineering aura and blasted the entire convoy. Dust billowed up, and countless treasures were blasted away. The 100 royal guards quickly dodged. "You're courting death," Shitan Chongsher roared furiously. Boom! A horrifying aura exploded from his body like a volcano eruption and sent Huang Ming flying away. He leaped up and slashed at Zhou Xuanji with his heavenly halberd. Chapter 126. Sensing Shitan Chongsher's shocking murderous aura, Zhou Xuanji could not dodge in time and slashed with his sword instinctively. It was the same Tempest Slash. A sword chi that was hundreds of meters long swept across. Shitan Chongsher's face was hideous. He stabbed with his halberd and dispersed the sword chi. Next, he came up to Zhou Xuanji. But when he saw Zhou Xuanji's face clearly, he was a little dazed. The wind-cutter sword appeared under Zhou Xuanji's feet. He used the 8-step sword lunge and came to the ruins hundreds of meters away. The evil cultivators began attacking the royal guards one after another. A great battle broke out. Dust billowed in the air. Zhou Xuanji stared at Shitan Chongsher with squinted eyes. This person's power was really horrifying. At that moment, he even felt like he was facing death. At this moment, Huang Ming charged toward Shitan Chongsher again. He felt ashamed that he was sent flying by Shitan Chongsher's aura. The two of them fought again. Their cultivations were so powerful that each time they clashed, a violent gale swept up and destroyed the heavens and the earth. Shitan Chongsher was shocked in his heart. Who is that brat? Why does he look so much like His Majesty? He thought to himself in confusion as he fought with Huang Ming. Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, Jiang Shui, and the others flew out from underground. They did not participate in the battle but watched from afar. Even if they wanted to participate, there was no opportunity. More and more devilish cultivators rushed out from the ground, flying into the air and then descending like a black rain. Zhou Xuanji stared at the spot where the carriages exploded. He could not sense the Empress aura. That woman died just like that? Zhou Xuanji frowned. He felt that it was unreal. Theoretically, the Empress should not be weak. Even if he used the power of the ancient sword emperor, he could not have killed her instantly. "Are you looking for me?" A cold female voice came from behind Zhou Xuanji, which made his pupils contract. He would never forget this voice in his life. The Empress of Great Zhou. He turned around and saw the Empress standing 20 meters away, looking at him coldly. The Empress of the Great Zhou dynasty wore a luxurious golden dress and a pearl phoenix coronet. Her face was beautiful and cold. Just by standing there, she had the aura of an emperor that reigned above all others. As the Empress, it was a miracle that she was able to survive until now with such boldness. Zhou Xuanji mocked in his heart. He wondered if Emperor Yan of Zhou was blind. If he became the son of heaven, how could he allow the Empress to be so ambitious? "You really didn't die. That's good too. I won't be happy if I let you die too easily," Zhou Xuanji said as his eyes narrowed. Whenever he thought of Lady Zhao Xian's gentle face, his fury and killing intent surged. In actuality, aside from saving Zhou Xuanji in the end, Lady Zhao Xian was not a good mother. Usually, she would hand him over to the nannies and palace maids to take care of him, and when she had nothing to do, she would bring him around to show off. But Lady Zhao Xian was still quite adorable and truly loved him. This woman didn't even have time to learn how to be a good mother before she died. How could he not feel regret? Seeing the murderous aura emanating from Zhou Xuanji's eyes, the Empress smiled mockingly. "I didn't expect a vile spawn like you to be so powerful. It seems like Daoya old man put in a lot of effort," the Empress said coldly. She and Lady Zhao Xian were both extremely beautiful, and they came from prestigious sections. They disliked each other. Now that she saw Zhou Xuanji's talent, which was even more overpowered than Zhou Yalong's, she could no longer hold back her jealousy. She waved her right hand, and a long silver whip appeared in her hand. There were many tiny spikes on the whip's body. The silver whip trembled, and lightning coiled around it. "That B*TCH's death won't let me be at ease. Today, I will send you to meet that B*TCH. The Empress walked toward Zhou Xuanji, and a powerful murderous aura exploded. Zhou Xuanji advanced with his sword in hand instead of retreating. "After I kill you today, I will kill Zhou Yalong next time and send you and your mother to the netherworld to reunite." After Zhou Xuanji said this, he charged toward her. He promised Huang Lianxin that he would avenge her, so he must keep his word. He came up to the Empress and activated the Soul Eater slash straightaway. 3 streaks of black sword chi rose from the ground and were about to tear the Empress into pieces. The Empress moved just as quickly. She whipped toward Zhou Xuanji, and lightning flashed. Boom! The silver whip exploded the sword chi. The lightning intertwined with the demonic chi. The ground cracked, and dust billowed up. Zhou Xuanji came to the back of the Empress with the 8-step sword lunge. Although the Empress lived a luxurious life, her battle awareness was extremely strong. Her spirit energy was even more powerful, which prevented Zhou Xuanji from getting close. Huang Ming, who was fighting with Shitan Chongshi, frowned. Isn't Sword God Zhou able to injure the Sword Monarch? Why is he still in a stalemate with the Empress? Huang Ming was confused. Could it be that the rumors were not true? If he could rival the Sword Monarch, how could he not defeat the Empress? Although the Empress was powerful, she was far from the Sword Monarch. Shitan Chongshi also noticed the battle between Zhou Xuanji and the Empress. He even heard their conversation clearly. Lady Zhao Xian's son. No wonder. Shitan Chongshi thought to himself in shock. He suddenly remembered what Emperor Yan of Zhou said to him before he set off. His eyes turned complicated. At the same time, Jiang Shui, Xiao Jinghong, and the others were watching the battle anxiously. Jiang Shui asked softly, "Why is the Empress so powerful?" According to the stories, shouldn't the mistress of the harem be busy with court battles? Han Shenbo said, "She came from Merciful Melody Cliff. Back then, she fought alongside Emperor Yan of Zhou. Of course, she's powerful." Zhou Xuanji was also shocked by the Empress' power. Even with the power of the ancient sword emperor, he could not injure her. This woman was definitely at the top of the astral projection stage. She might have already reached the spirit refinement stage. If so, Zhou Xuanji flipped his left hand, and the God Emperor sword appeared in his hand. The God Emperor chi exploded and coalesced into a horrifying shadow. The Empress opened her beautiful eyes wide, and her heart was overwhelmed with shock. Such a powerful aura. No wonder he could injure the Sword Monarch. She was anxious in her heart. Why was Shitan Chongshi not here yet? Huang Ming could not possibly be a match for Shitan Chongshi. Zhou Xuanji slashed with his sword, and his sword chi swept out. The Empress blocked with her silver whip but was pushed back by the sword chi. Before the God Emperor sword chi, the Empress looked so powerless. This made Huang Ming heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, he was confused. He locked his eyes on Shitan Chongshi. Although Shitan Chongshi was still exchanging blows with him, the two of them were exchanging blows and were too intense. It was unreal. Did I become more powerful? Or is he going easy on me? Huang Ming was astonished, and his expression turned strange. From afar, Xiao Jinghong also saw the problem. Why do I feel that Shitan Chongshi is not fighting with his full power? He said with a frown. With this, the others turned their attention to Shitan Chongshi. Could he be a werewolf? Jiang Shui cried out in shock. Chapter 127. Werewolf? It can't be. He has pure human bloodline. Or else, how could he become the first-rank state general? Han Shenbo shook his head. At the same time, he saw something fishy. There was something wrong with Shitan Chongshi's attitude. Jiang Shui shook her head with a smile and did not explain. The werewolf she mentioned was not a demon. It was what Zhou Xuanji often said to her. Others did not know, and she did not bother to explain either. She took it as a secret signal between her and Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji flew toward the Empress at a low altitude with the God Emperor sword in his hand. In his eyes, the Empress was no longer that powerful. She could even be considered weak. "Before you die, do you have anything else to say?" Zhou Xuanji said expressionlessly. He could see something too. Shitan Chongshi was waiting for him to kill the Empress. Could this person be a subordinate of one of the princes or concubines? The Empress steadied herself. Her face was covered in frost. She looked at Shitan Chongshi and asked, "General, what are you doing?" Shitan Chongshi, who was fighting with Huang Ming, said with gritted teeth, "I will do my best to live up to your Majesty's expectations. I swear to protect the Empress with my life." Having heard this, the Empress's pupils dilated. She immediately understood what Shitan Chongsher meant. She smiled pitifully. I see. She mumbled to herself. Zissou, I have changed. You have changed too. Zhou Xuanji flew up to her and raised the God Emperor sword high. Facing the God Emperor sword, she could not escape even if she wanted to. With this slash, the Empress would be dead for sure. She looked up at Zhou Xuanji with a hideous face and said with gritted teeth, Little brat, consider yourself lucky. I'm going to die today. But I have to remind you to be careful of your father. Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes. Could it be that Emperor Yan of Zhou was behind all this? At this moment, the Empress sat down with her legs crossed and looked like she was not going to resist anymore. She lowered her head and smiled pitifully. Actually, I'm in the same boat as your mother. Back then, when he ascended the throne, I was pregnant with his first son. He was supposed to be the crown prince, but he was poisoned by AB*TCH, who killed my unborn child. He lied to me. He promised me that after he ascended the throne, he would only favor me. My eldest son is dead. No matter how talented my second son is, he cannot become the crown prince. Why? When this empress saw him circling around Zhao Xian, this empress was reminded of that slut from back then. This empress wants you to experience the pain of a mother and son being separated by life and death. At this point, she gritted her teeth and laughed even more miserably. Looking back at the first half of his life, Emperor Yan of Zhou was just a young boy and was not valued by the previous emperor. She was the proud daughter of the Holy Land, and the difference in status between the two of them was like heaven and earth. In the end, she still followed him down the mountain and roamed the world. She accompanied him through mountains of daggers and seas of fire. She gave her all to protect him as he ascended to the throne. However, few of the promises he had made to her could be fulfilled. Zhou Xuanji looked at the Empress expressionlessly. Even though the Empress looked extremely pitiful, his heart did not waver. A life for a life was a matter of course. She suffered, but how could Lady Zhao Xian not suffer as well? Zhou Xuanji's God Emperor sword descended slowly. In the distance, Xinhao sect and the great Zhou royal guards were still fighting. Shitan Chongsher fought with Huang Ming with a hideous face. He roared occasionally, as though he had used all his strength and was extremely furious. The Empress flipped her right hand, and a piece of paper appeared in her hand. On it were two crooked words. Mother. Long-er, you can only rely on yourself from now on. I will pray for you from below. The Empress lowered her head and muttered to herself. The sword flashed. Soul Eater slash. The black sword chi engulfed her instantly, and the piece of paper in her hand turned into ashes. The earth shook violently, and the ground collapsed. Cracks spread out in all directions, shocking everyone and causing them to stop fighting and turn their heads to look at this scene. The great Zhou royal guards were all ashen-faced. With the death of the Empress, even if they could escape back to Great Zhou, they would not be able to escape the punishment of having their entire clan executed. Shitan Chongsher frowned and appeared to be in a daze. He was an old general who had followed Emperor Yan of Zhou to conquer the world. He knew how difficult it was for the Empress and Emperor Yan of Zhou. Now that the Empress died at the Great Zhou Kingdom's gate, even he could not help but feel bitterly disappointed. Only now did he truly understand how heartless an emperor was. The Empress' astral infant did not manage to escape and died completely. Not even a piece of her remains was left. Zhou Xuanji stored the God Emperor sword. Cold sweat covered his forehead as he heaved a long sigh. Revenge was finally taken. Zhao Xian, mother, I have avenged you. In this life, I will live for myself. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He retained the memories of his previous life after all. Although he was grieving when he thought of Lady Zhao Xian, it was not to the point where he wanted to die. After killing the Empress of the Great Zhou dynasty, he felt a sense of relief. He immediately flew toward Jiang Shui and the others. You dared to kill the Empress. His Majesty will not let you off. Shitan Chongsher roared in grief and indignation. After that, he turned into a stream of light and left. Everyone was stunned. The surviving Great Zhou royal guards' expressions changed drastically. They followed suit and fled, but Xinhao sect would not let them off. Huang Ming understood what Shitan Chongsher meant and said immediately, kill them. Don't leave a single one alive. He turned to look at the direction where Shitan Changsher left. He smiled and mumbled, "Interesting. I can rope them in next time." The other side. Jiang Shui held Zhou Xuanji's hand and asked caringly, "Are you okay?" Although the matter of revenge was satisfying, it was inevitable that they would think of sad things. Zhou Xuanji grinned at her and said, "What can happen to me? I feel great." He turned to the crowd and said, "Let's go." He did not want to be besieged by Xinhao sect. No one had any objections and quickly left. Soon, all the royal guards of Great Zhou were killed. The corners of Huang Ming's lips curled into a sinister smile. Spread the news that Sword God Zhou killed the Empress of Great Zhou. It's best to spread the news to the Great Zhou dynasty. The bigger the better. Once Zhou Yalong knew about this, he would definitely go crazy and fight Zhou Xuanji to the death. When that time came, Zhou Xuanji would watch from the sidelines and capture both of them at once. The more he thought about it, the more carefree he felt. He even couldn't help but throw his head back and laugh. The 100,000 demonic cultivators looked at each other in dismay. This battle was faster than they had imagined. At the same time, they also witnessed the cruelty of the Great Zhou. They were even more ruthless than the devil cult. 2 hours later, Zhou Xuanji and the others found a big and small air before leaving Xinhao sect. They could feel that a storm was coming. In less than 3 days, the news that the Empress of Great Zhou died under Sword God Zhou's sword spread like wildfire across Juema Wasteland and into Great Zhou. Great Zhou's reaction was much faster than Juema Wasteland. How can it be? Is Sword God Zhou crazy? Sword God Zhou killed the Empress of Great Zhou? Could it be because of what happened before? Of course. The Empress of Great Zhou sent someone to kill him. Of course he had to take revenge. But she was the mother of Great Zhou after all. Isn't Sword God Zhou too crazy? It's over. Zhou Yalong is going to be furious. If he ascends to the throne, Sword God Zhou will not be able to return to Great Zhou. Chapter 128. At a relay station in Juema Wasteland. There was a small inn here with 3 tables. A tall man sat at one of the tables. He wore a white robe and carried a black blade that was half a foot wide on his back. His black hair was tied up at the back of his head. His face looked like it had been shaved by a blade. The corners of his face were distinct, and his eyes were sharp. He looked down and swirled the wine cup in his hand. At this moment, 2 men walked into the inn, chatting and laughing. "TSK, TSK. I didn't expect the Empress of Great Zhou to be dead. She died so tragically right after leaving Great Zhou. Not even her bones were left. Such a tragedy. Yeah. Sword God Zhou is too ruthless. That Shitan Changsher is too useless. He couldn't even protect the Empress. How can he be the state general? There's going to be a good show. Xinhao sect wants to kill Sword God Zhou, and Great Zhou wants to kill him too." The 2 chatted as they called for the waiter. The man in white put down his wine cup. He got up and walked to their table. "Is what you said true?" he asked in a deep voice. The 2 looked up at him and were frightened by his cold eyes. They quickly answered honestly. "It's true. The news has spread across Juema Wasteland." "That's right. The news has spread to Great Zhou." The man in white heard them and immediately left. He covered 100 meters with 1 step and disappeared into the horizon in 7 steps. The 2 men, the innkeeper, and the waiter were all stunned at this scene. The white clouds in the sky suddenly broke apart, as though the sky was cut apart. Great Zhou Empire. In a palace, a handsome man in a black robe with python patterns was cultivating on his bed. He had a handsome face. His hands were placed in front of his abdomen with his palms facing up. Gusts of wind drifted in the palace, causing the candles to flicker. He was Zhou Yalong, the most powerful genius of the Great Zhou royal family, the prince who had the highest chance to ascend to the throne. Zhou Yalong's brows twitched. He felt uneasy. Somehow, he felt that something bad was about to happen. The higher one's cultivation, the more realistic this feeling was. At this moment, a maidservant walked in quickly from the door. "Your Highness. Bad news." The maidservant knelt in front of him and cried out in fear. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red. Zhou Yalong frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What is it?" "Her Majesty." "Her Majesty?" The maid choked with sobs, unable to say a complete sentence for a long time. Zhou Yalong's expression changed drastically. He raised his right hand and pulled the maidservant in front of him. He gritted his teeth and said, "Speak clearly. Do you want to die?" The horrifying murderous aura made the maidservant shiver all over as she quickly shouted, "Her Majesty the Empress died in Juemal Wasteland, killed by sword god Zhou." As soon as these words were spoken, Zhou Yalong felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and he seemed to have lost his soul. His right hand was powerless, and the maid fell to the ground. She was so frightened that she quickly turned over and knelt down. Zhou Yalong sat paralyzed on the bed, his lips trembling. He wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. His hands anxiously touched the bedcloth, and his face gradually became ferocious. "Is that true? Aren't they escorted by Shitan Chongsher?" Zhou Yalong growled like a furious lion. At this moment, he really wanted to tear sword god Zhou into pieces. Xinhao Sec's Huang Ming has also made his move. "He has restrained General Shitan," the maid cautiously replied. This was the first time she had seen Zhou Yalong in such a state, and it made her very afraid. "Ha ha ha!" Zhou Yalong suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was filled with bone-piercing killing intent. How could he not know Huang Ming's strength? How could he not know Shitan Chongsher's strength? He immediately transformed into a gust of black wind and flew out of the palace. 10 days later, Zhou Xuanji and the others came to the forest. Han Shenbo looked ahead and said, "After crossing this forest, we will be out of the Juemal Wasteland again. The empire in front is adjacent to the Great Zhou dynasty. We are still in danger." After Zheheo's sect, Great Zhou also issued a wanted order for Zhou Xuanji. Emperor Yan of Zhou did not announce Zhou Xuanji's identity. As a prince, killing the empress of the Great Zhou dynasty was an act of insubordination. At the same time, it was an act of fratricide. It was a great taboo. If word got out, the entire Great Zhou dynasty would be shamed. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Next, we must not let our guard down. Xinhao sect will not let this go easily. We must find a good place. Give me 20 years, and the next time I come out, I will be unrivaled in the world." The last time he said 10 years, he was slapped in the face. This time, to be on the safe side, he added another 10 years. He shouldn't be slapped in the face, right? The group nodded. They also wanted to find a place to focus on cultivation, so that they would not be in such an awkward situation. Huang Lianxin mumbled, 20 years later, Zhou Yalong should have ascended to the throne, right? Zhou Xuanji glanced at her and said casually, "Then I will charge into Great Zhou and slay the emperor at that time." His heroic spirit soared to the sky. As long as one is alive, one should brag. Zhao Tsongjian said excitedly, 20 years later, will our master break through to Astral Infant? Astral Infant? Looking down on me? Then I will set Astral Infant as my goal. Zhou Xuanji snorted, and the group burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha ha. Break through to Astral Infant in 20 years? Kid, you are really arrogant." A familiar burst of laughter came, and the group turned to look. They saw Daoya old man standing on a tree and looking at Zhou Xuanji and the others with a smile. Jiang Shui opened her eyes wide and cried out, "Xuanji's grand teacher." Han Shenbo raised his brow. He had heard many rumors about Daoya old man. This person's cultivation was unfathomable. "Come here quickly. I have something to tell you. It's a miracle that you guys did not die in Juemal Wasteland." Daoya old man waved his hand and looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated gaze. He did not expect Zhou Xuanji to really kill the empress. This guy is only 17 years old. What a devilish genius. Zhou Xuanji immediately brought the group to the tree he was on. Daoya old man jumped down and sighed. "You were used as a tool. Do you know that?" Zhou Xuanji said expressionlessly, "I want to kill her. It doesn't matter whether I was used as a tool or not." The group was curious. They felt that it was strange too. The Empress of Great Zhou is too domineering. Emperor Yan of Zhou was worried that after he ascended, the Empress would interfere with politics, so he used you to get rid of the Empress. No matter who ascends to the throne in the future, he will not be controlled by the Empress. But do you know the Empress' background? Not only the merciful Melody Cliff, but her elder brother, Lin Guanyu, is also in Juemal Wasteland. Daoya old man sighed and looked as though Zhou Xuanji was in great trouble. What? Lin Guanyu is the Empress' elder brother? Han Shenhua cried out in shock. Fear was written all over his face. Lin Guanyu was in Juema wasteland. He looked back immediately out of fear. Who is Lin Guanyu? Xiao Jinghong asked curiously. Baba Blade Master. His blade is the most powerful blade in the northern wilderness region. Because of him, Emperor Yan of Zhou was even more fearful of the Empress and did not dare to get rid of the Empress personally. Daoya old man sighed. Zhou Xuanji heard him and frowned. The most powerful in the northern wilderness region. This title was indeed a little scary. Since you know that I am coming, then you can kneel down and wait for your death. At this moment, an indifferent voice resounded across the heavens and earth, as though a god was speaking to the mortal world. Chapter 129. Daoya old man's expression darkened as he cursed. Lin Guanyu really followed you guys. Baba Blade Master Lin Guanyu. The Blade Conqueror of the Northern Wilderness region was even more powerful than the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. Back then, before Emperor Yan of Zhou became famous and ascended to the throne, he had already dominated a region. It's over, it's over. Han Shenhua's legs were trembling. He was terrified to the extreme, and his eyes were filled with despair. His understanding of the northern wilderness region was greater than Xiao Jinghong and the rest. He even knew what the name Baba Blade Master represented. Plop. He was so frightened that he knelt on the ground. Zhou Xuanji frowned. Was Lin Guanyu that terrifying? Pa, the little black snake rushed over and whipped Han Shenhua away with its tail, cursing, "What a disgrace! This old man hasn't backed down yet." After saying that, it burrowed into Little Fool's wing and hid well. Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, and Bei Xiao Wangjian drew their swords and prepared for battle. Under everyone's nervous gaze, Lin Guanyu strolled over from the horizon. He was dressed in white and carried a black saber on his back. Even from a distance, everyone could feel the oppressive aura that shook their hearts. Very strong. More powerful than the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou. It could even be said to be invincible. Behind Zhou Xuanji, Daoya old man sighed and said, "See, it's over. Even Emperor Yan of Zhou might not be a match for him." Not only did he get rid of the Empress, but he also diverted Lin Guanyu's hatred. What a brilliant move. Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown, if he's more powerful than Emperor Yan of Zhou and Emperor Yan of Zhou is about to ascend, why hasn't he ascended yet? Unscientific. You think Emperor Yan of Zhou wants to ascend? Daoya old man shook his head and said, anyone who has been the emperor for a long time will be forced to ascend. Otherwise, the Mahayana realm alone won't be enough to ascend. Although the emperor of an empire is awe-inspiring, once he ascends, his status will plummet and he will become the lowest of immortals. Many emperors of empires would give up their positions in time. However, Great Zhou was facing a crisis before, so Emperor Yan of Zhou had no choice but to remain in office. Today, even if he gives up his position, he will still ascend. So the Mahayana realm was not the realm of ascension. It was just that Emperor Yan of Zhou was special. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and took out the sky-sundering emperor sword. Pah! Daoya old man slapped the back of Zhou Xuanji's head and said unpleasantly, "Brat, you still dare to fight him? You must be tired of living." After saying this, he pulled Zhou Xuanji behind him. He glared at the others and scolded, "All of you back off. Don't get in the way." Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, and the rest quickly retreated. Lin Guanyu was incomparably powerful, and now was not the time for them to show off. "Daoya old man, if you stop me, I'll kill you." Lin Guanyu's voice came from afar. His voice was casual, as if killing Daoya old man was a piece of cake. Daoya old man chuckled and said, "Your sister killed the daughter I raised myself. Now that she's dead, it's her retribution. Instead of finding trouble with Emperor Yan of Zhou, you're arguing with a child. You're not worthy of being a saber saint." He looked back at Zhou Xuanji and the others and said in a low voice, "Run! Run as far as you can." Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked, "Can you deal with him?" "Back then, I couldn't save your mother. If I watched you die, your mother would never forgive me in the underworld." Daoya old man smiled. His smile was still as annoying as before. "Get lost. Don't drag me down. Having heard him, Xueqi looked at him intently before leaving with the rest. Lin Guanyu's voice came. If so, then I'll chop off your head first. Daoya old man straightened his back and said proudly, all my life, I, Daoya, have always been kind to everyone. I have never fought with anyone, not with this world. But today, I will show my brilliance. Xueqi and the others flew ahead. Hearing Daoya old man's words, they could not help but feel a sense of respect. Beixiao Wangjian sighed in amazement. Seems like Master's grand teacher is very powerful. Of course. Daoya old man is a deified being. There are many legends about him in travel books. Zhao Zongjian nodded and said with admiration. Xueqi said with a deep voice, stop chatting. Hurry up. The group shuddered in their hearts and did not dare to speak anymore. Boom! A deafening explosion came from behind, which pierced everyone's eardrums. The entire forest shook, and trees were uprooted from the ground. The group was shocked. They immediately flew out of the forest and continued to fly ahead. Xueqi looked back. The wasteland was covered in dust, and Daoya old man was nowhere to be seen. He should be fine, right? Xueqi mumbled to himself. He was a little worried. No matter what, Daoya old man did it to save him. Jiang Shui, who was in his arms, comforted him. Don't worry. He's so confident. Even if he can't defeat him, he should be able to escape. Xueqi nodded and flew on his sword at full speed. The group quickly disappeared into the horizon. An hour later, in the billowing dust, Lin Guanyu walked out with his saber. His white robe was stained with blood. In his left hand was a human head. It was Daoya old man. Daoya old man's face was hideous. His eyes were wide open, and he looked like he was going to risk his life. Escape. Even if you escape to the end of the world, I will still kill you. Lin Guanyu mumbled to himself before he carried Daoya old man's head forward. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 dragon eagles flew swiftly across the sky. Little Black and Huang Lianxin were on their backs, while the rest flew on their swords at full speed. Han Shenbo called out from behind, Great Shang Empire is in front of us. We cannot say that we are from Great Zhou. Great Shang Empire. Xueqi thought of the Shang Empire in China's history somehow. The northern wilderness region was really mystical. There was Great Zhou and Shang Empire. He wondered if there was Great Qin and Great Tang. I heard that Great Shang has many hidden talents, including a great Buddha with a golden body and auspicious aura. The sword monarch of Great Zhou was sent by Emperor Yan of Zhou to negotiate with Great Shang. He almost died in Great Shang. I don't know if it's true, Xiao Jinghong said with a solemn tone. Although Great Shang's prowess was not widely known among the people of Great Zhou, those who had been around for a long time knew that Great Zhou was always at a disadvantage against Great Shang. After we enter Great Shang, hide first. Xueqi instructed. He wondered how Daoya old man was doing. If they could not win, it was time for them to escape. In front of them were endless mountains and rivers. They were finally out of Juema wasteland. The group moved forward at full speed. Xueqi sent Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Zongjian to find a cave. It was best to find a cave that was connected to the underground. If they did not hide, they might die before they reached Great Shang. He hugged Jiang Shui's waist with one hand. Jiang Shui held a palm leaf fan in her hand and waved it continuously. Waves of mist spread out. She was using a water elemental spell to erase the scent that they left behind along the way. Soon, Zhao Zongjian and Xiao Jinghong returned. The 2 of them found a cave that was connected to the underground. The cave was located in a huge lake. The lake was surrounded by forests, and the river flowed in all directions. The group jumped into the river, including a big and small air. All of them swam toward the bottom of the lake. Chapter 130. The lake was 200 meters deep. If not for their high cultivations, they would not have been able to swim to the bottom. Soon, they entered the cave. Fortunately, the cave was wide. If a big and small air were stuck at the entrance, it would be awkward. After entering the cave, they continued to swim. After swimming out of the cave, they swam another 100 meters upstream and arrived at another world. This was an underground space that was extremely vast. The reefs hanging at the top were extremely sharp and were dripping with water. Many strange crystals were embedded on the surface of the reefs, which glowed faintly. The crystals gathered together and illuminated the underground space. After the group reached the shore, they lay on the ground and began to pant. The long and intense escape made them very tired. Even the little black snake did not talk back. It laid on the ground motionlessly like a dead snake. Jiang Shui lay beside Zhou Xuanji and asked while panting, "Can we really hide from Lin Guanyu here?" "We can only pray." Zhou Xuanji sighed. This time, he had kicked an iron plate. He did not expect the Empress to have such a powerful elder brother. Han Shenbo sighed. "Now that we are being hunted by Xinhao sect, Baba Blade Master, and Great Zhou, we are in such a sorry state." Zhou Xuanji could not help but reflect on what he did wrong. Shouldn't he have allied with Xinhao sect? Xinhao sect was a powerful sect. Lin Guanyu did not dare to go against them directly, so the hatred was shifted to him. But if he did not ally with Xinhao sect, he might not have been able to kill the Empress. The reason was that he was too weak. After that, Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, and Han Shenbo got up and began to set up a spell formation to conceal their qi signature, so that Lin Guanyu would not discover them. Gurgle. Gurgle. At this moment, bubbles appeared on the surface of the lake. The group got up immediately in fear and prepared for battle. Bei Xiao Wangjian swallowed his saliva and mumbled, "It can't be him, right?" Zhou Xuanji took out the God Emperor sword. Even if he were to die, he would die in battle. Wah! At this moment, a silhouette emerged from the lake. The group was pleasantly surprised. Daoya Old Man. He quickly leaped up and landed by the lake. As he patted his robe he cursed, "Damn, I was almost killed by Lin Guanyu. Fortunately, my undying divine ability has reached the stage of perfection." Zhou Xuanji and the others came up and asked him all at once. Daoya Old Man sat on the ground and recounted the battle. It turned out that he had left a mark on Zhou Xuanji's body that could track him from 10,000 miles away. He held Lin Guanyu back for an hour and was finally beheaded. Fortunately, Lin Guanyu did not destroy his body. After Lin Guanyu left, he grew ahead and used a movement divine ability to track down Zhou Xuanji. Immortal technique? Are you Wolverine or Deadpool? Zhou Xuanji sighed in amazement. Daoya Old Man crossed his arms in front of his chest and said proudly, "Why do you think I have so many legends? I'm really an immortal." Boasting. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes, but he realized that Daoya Old Man's return reduced the tension in the group. This old man gave people a great sense of security. Daoya Old Man placed his hands on his thighs and said, "From now on, don't go out. Cultivate here with peace of mind. Once you've mastered your cultivation and are no longer afraid of Lin Guanyu, I'll let you go." Everyone nodded. Being chased by Lin Guanyu like this, they were all suppressing a ball of fire in their hearts. Especially Zhou Xuanji. How many years has it been? Other than when he was 2 years old, it was the first time he was in such a sorry state. Lin Guanyu, right? Just you wait. One day, my sword will break your saber. Zhou Xuanji's eyes were burning with flames as he roared furiously in his heart. Daoya Old Man glanced at him and sighed in amazement in his heart. He's totally different from his mother's character. He's really staunch. This is good. A man should be like this. He must take revenge and be fearless. After the thought, Daoya Old Man got up slowly and said, "I did some tricks in the lake. Lin Guanyu can't possibly discover this place. Let's start cultivating now." When everyone heard this, their spirits were lifted, and they stood up. Zhou Xuanji sat by the lake and took out some elixirs to internalize qi. Daoya Old Man walked to his side and drew a circle with his finger. Next, he felt waves of spiritual qi gathering toward him. He looked at Daoya Old Man in astonishment. Daoya Old Man smiled as he stroked his long beard and left. Just like that, Zhou Xuanji and the others began to diligently cultivate. Their goal was to make it out as soon as possible. At first, Daoya Old Man would teach Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, and Bei Xiao Wangjian. But after Zhou Xuanji showed off his sword techniques, he went to teach others. In terms of attainment in the way of the sword, he could not compare to Zhou Xuanji. However, he could teach Jiang Shui, Han Shenbo, and the little black snake. Especially Jiang Shui, who amazed him with her incredible talent. She was even more powerful than Zhou Xuanji's mother. Therefore, He began to focus on teaching Jiang Shui. Under his guidance, Jiang Shui broke through a small realm in less than a month. Zhou Xuanji was happy for Jiang Shui, but at the same time, he began to doubt himself. It seemed like he was only suitable to teach swordsmanship. On this day, analyze that the sword owner has reached 18 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations, sword owner has obtained gold, soft velvety sword, silver, divine crane sword, silver, illusory sword, silver, heavenly lights. The sword spirit's voice sounded out in Zhou Xuanji's mind, causing him to open his eyes. 3 divine swords. He immediately took out the 3 swords, and at the same time, their information appeared before his eyes. Sword name, soft velvety sword grade, gold description. As long as the enemy is not more than 2 stages higher than the sword owner, once pierced by this sword, the enemy will lose all strength and fall to the ground. Sword name, divine crane sword grade. Silver description. Made from the bones of a 1,000-year-old divine crane. It is extremely hard. Sword name, illusory sword grade. Silver description. When swinging the sword, the blade can turn invisible and create a shadow, catching the enemy off guard. This soft velvety sword is interesting. Doesn't that mean that he can do whatever he wants after being pierced by it? Zhou Xuanji was amazed in his heart. He looked at the 3 divine swords in his hand. The soft velvety sword was a soft sword. The blade was only 2 fingers wide, and it looked like an ordinary silver sword. The divine crane sword was a white jade sword. The sword guard was in the shape of a crane spreading its wings. The illusory sword was a black sword that looked simple and ordinary. These 3 divine swords did not look fancy at all. But it was not bad to have 3 more swords. He was getting closer to the requirement of the 100 swords mode. After that, he began to inherit the heavenly lights. The heavenly lights was a sword technique. The amount of memory it contained almost made Zhou Xuanji faint. This sword technique was very powerful. The sword chi left his body and transformed into the image of the sun, moon, and stars, charging forward. After a while, the memory transfer ended. He stored the divine crane sword and illusory sword and began to practice his sword technique with the soft velvety sword. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji was practicing, Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Congjian, Bei Xiao Wangjian, and Huang Lianxin's eyes brightened, and they surrounded him. Another new sword technique. Chapter 131. Daoya old man also came over and said in surprise, "Oh, this kid is finally practicing the sword. I almost forgot that he's a sword cultivator." He could not deny Zhou Xuanji's attitude of desperately taking in qi. But that didn't mean he agreed with it. However, when he thought of Lin Guanyu's threats, he acquiesced. Zhao Congjian said proudly, "My master can master any sword technique very quickly, so he doesn't need to practice it normally." So powerful? Stop bragging. Daoya old man curled his lip and watched Zhou Xuanji train. Heavenly lights had a total of 72 sword forms, and each of them was tricky. Zhou Xuanji spent 22 breaths of time to learn one set. From the second time onwards, the speed at which he swung his sword suddenly increased. After 10 times, his speed increased again, and Daoya old man's expression changed. This kid. After 100 repetitions, heavenly lights reached the initial success stage. After 200 repetitions, the heavenly sun, moon, and stars technique was completed. After 400 times, Zhou Xuanji realized the sword will. He held the soft velvety sword in his hand. Sword chi flowed around him, and the image of the sun, moon, and stars appeared behind him. It was a spectacular sight. Even Jiang Shui, the little black snake, and Han Shenbo came over to watch. "What sword is this?" Zhao Congjian held back his excitement and asked. He really wanted to learn. Zhou Xuanji's expression was calm as he said, "The sword gives birth to the world, the sword gives birth to the small thousand world, the sword gives birth to the great thousand world. The sun, moon, and stars are the foundation of the world." This sword technique is the heavenly light of sun, moon, and stars. Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Congjian, Huang Lianxin, and Bei Xiao Wangjian were all stunned and repeated Zhou Xuanji's words. Daoya old man also frowned and fell into deep thought. This brat's words actually contained profound mysteries. Not simple. Zhou Xuanji sheathed his sword and hid his name. He then walked up to Jiang Shui and asked about her cultivation progress. Beixiao Wangjian patted Zhao Congjian's shoulder and shook his head. Don't think about it. There will be plenty of chances in the future. Zhao Congjian took a deep breath and nodded heavily. His eyes burned with fighting spirit again. Daoya old man suddenly held his chest, and his expression changed. He looked up at Zhou Xuanji and mumbled, "Why is this boy's talent in the way of the sword so strange? Could it be that something went wrong when I changed his life back then? Good fortune is accompanied by bad fortune, and bad fortune is accompanied by good fortune. This matter had to be vigilant." Everyone continued to cultivate in this underground space. 1 month later, Zhou Xuanji finally broke through to the Soul Fountain stage. At the Spirit Spring stage, magical power would transform into Spirit Spring, flowing through the 8 extraordinary meridians and converging on the Niden. The speed at which the spiritual power circulated and was produced would be far faster than before, and the spiritual power produced would also be stronger than before. Simply put, Zhou Xuanji felt that his spirit energy had increased by more than 100 times. Detected that the Sword Master has reached the Spirit Spring stage. Beginning random lottery. Ding. Congratulations. Sword owner has obtained Amethyst, Phoenix Emperor Sword. Amethyst Divine Sword. Zhou Xuanji was exhilarated. Now, gold-grade legendary swords were no longer of interest to him. Amethyst-grade legendary swords were his real threshold. Although it was not as good as the glorious gold legendary sword, the side effects of the glorious gold legendary sword were too great. He immediately took out the Phoenix Emperor Sword. The sword was crimson in color and was 1 meter long. The blade was as wide as an adult's palm, and the guard was carved in the shape of a phoenix. Its wings were facing downwards, giving it an extraordinary might. The end of the hilt was connected to 3 phoenix wings. Once the Phoenix Emperor Sword appeared, the entire underground space was illuminated by the fiery light. Everyone felt a gust of hot air coming from behind them. They turned around instinctively and saw the Phoenix Emperor Sword in Zhou Xuanji's hand. Strands of flames came out from the blade and formed into a fiery phoenix behind Zhou Xuanji. The phoenix had a wingspan of 15 meters and looked extremely mighty. Such a handsome fiery bird. Daoya old man praised. This sword was not simple. Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Congjian were stunned. Another godly sword. The little black snake mumbled, "Where did this brat get so many swords?" Zhou Xuanji swung the Phoenix Emperor Sword. It was so mighty. If he were to use the fiery sword technique, it would definitely be overpowering. At this moment, 3 lines of words appeared before his eyes. Sword name. Phoenix Emperor Sword grade. Amethyst description. Millions of phoenixes gave birth to an imperial phoenix. The Phoenix Emperor Sword was forged from the bones of the imperial phoenix. It contains the flames of the phoenix and can burn all things. Although it did not have the power of the ancient Sword Emperor like the Sky-Sundering Emperor Sword, Zhou Xuanji felt that the Phoenix Emperor Sword was more powerful. He could control all the power of the Phoenix Emperor Sword as he pleased. Maybe it was because he had reached the Soul Fountain stage. With the Phoenix Emperor Sword in his hand, he felt that everything was so fragile. Awesome. Using 2 Amethyst legendary swords and using the dual sword mode, I wonder if I can fight against the Sword Monarch of Great Zhou? There's still a long way to go. I can't be reckless. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and stored the Phoenix Emperor Sword into the supreme storage before continuing to cultivate. He walked to the lakeside and continued to internalize qi. Xiao Jinghong heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at the sword in his hand and suddenly felt that his sword was not so handsome anymore. Daoya old man rubbed his chin and fell into deep thought. After breaking through to the Soul Fountain stage, Zhou Xuanji's cultivation speed did not slow down but became even more ferocious. In 3 months, he broke through to Soul Fountain level 2. The others were breaking through quickly too. Daoya old man cast a spell to absorb the spiritual qi from the surrounding earth veins for them to cultivate, which allowed them to progress at a tremendous pace. In the entire team, the weakest was at enlightening level 5. The little black snake was specially taken care of by Daoya old man. He was thrown into the cauldron from time to time and used rare materials to strengthen his body. So the underground space would be filled with the aroma of snake meat soup every few days. This also caused a big and small air to look at the little black snake differently. Now the little black snake did not even dare to get close to them for fear that he would be eaten by them. 4 months later, Zhou Xuanji broke through to Soul Fountain Level 3. This day, Daoya Old Man went out to investigate the situation. Lin Guanyu should have gone far away. It was impossible for him to keep wandering around, unless he discovered him. 3 days later, Daoya Old Man returned. Crazy! Crazy! Lin Guanyu dared to barge into Great Shang alone and claimed that he wanted to capture Sword God Zhou. This forced Great Shang's Fury Buddha to intervene. Both sides were severely injured, and Lin Guanyu left with severe injuries. Daoya Old Man flew out of the lake and shouted loudly. He seemed extremely excited. Lin Guanyu was severely injured? Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. Did Lin Guanyu lose his mind? Daoya Old Man walked up to Zhou Xuanji and grabbed his shoulder. Great Shang will be holding a World Hero Conference soon. The top 10 will receive different rewards, and the first will receive 3 10,000-year-old Thunder Core Grass. You must get it. Zhou Xuanji resisted. Why? Can't you let me cultivate in peace? The 10,000-year-old Thunder Core Grass is a holy item for body refinement. It suits you very well and... Daoya Old Man blushed suddenly and stuttered. Back then I was injured by Lin Guanyu. His blade qi lingered in my body and could not be removed. This caused me to be unable to cultivate. If this continues, it will become a huge problem. I see. The group's expression became strange. Daoya Old Man felt embarrassed. He faked a cough and said righteously, "It is not enough to rely on hard work on the path of cultivation. It needs serendipity too. This is serendipity. Once you win, your Sword Qi Golden Body incantation will reach great accomplishment. 2 10,000-year-old Thunder Core Grass can help you reach Astral Infant within a month. It is equivalent to years of hard work. Are you sure you don't want to go?" Chapter 132. When does it start? Where is it? Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown. If he could break through to Astral Infant with the Thunder Core Grass, he naturally had to try it. Moreover, who knew him in Great Shang? It's in Chaoga Royal City in 2 months. Once you enter the city, you will know where to participate. Great Shang is fair and just. As long as you register for the World Hero Conference, the clans and sects will not offend you. You don't have to worry about this. Of course, if you cause trouble and meet with trouble, there's nothing you can do. Whether you can escape or not depends on yourself. Daoya Old Man stroked his long beard and introduced. Even Zhou Xuanji was a little moved. I want to go too, Zhao Tsongjian said excitedly. Daoya Old Man stared at him and said, all of you are not allowed to go. Stay here and cultivate. Zhao Tsongjian's face turned bitter immediately. Jiang Shui, Xiao Jinghong, Huang Lianxin, and the others were moved too. Han Shenbo waved his hand and said with a smile, yeah, why go out? It's too dangerous. He had not fully recovered his cultivation, so he could not wait to stay. The little black snake popped its head out of the cauldron and flicked its forked tongue. The aroma of delicacies emanated from its body. All of you stay. What ranking can you get if you follow him? If you don't work hard, he will break through to Astral Infant. My 1,000 years of cultivation cannot compare to this kid's 18 years of cultivation. Speaking up to this point, it could not help but sigh in sorrow. Zhou Xuanji looked at Jiang Shui and said, help me put on some makeup. It's best if I change my face. He then looked at Daoya Old Man and asked, if my disguise is exposed, will I be disqualified? Daoya Old Man chuckled. Who is standing in front of you? It's me, the old immortal. Later, I will cast some spells on you so that no one will notice. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes. He really knew how to act cool. Shortly after, he followed Jiang Shui to the wooden hut in the corner and began to disguise himself. Jiang Shui's fingers were very cold, and she kept rubbing Zhou Xuanji's face. This time, we are not around. You must be more alert. Jiang Shui reminded him as she helped him disguise. Usually, Zhou Xuanji could cultivate or rest without worry. With them keeping watch, he could only rely on himself for a period of time. When you reach Chaoga, don't attract too much attention. You are not allowed to go to the brothel that Bei Xiao mentioned. You can't flirt with other women. I can't, Jiang Shui chattered on and on, which gave Zhou Xuanji a headache. he said helplessly. My sister, I'm going there to fight, not to flirt. Maybe Lin Guanyu is still hiding in Great Shang. Hearing this, Jiang Shui asked nervously, why don't you not go? What's the big deal about cultivating for another 10 years? I'll accompany you. Just like that, the two of them began to chat. Zhou Xuanji did not need the feeling of being hunted. He desperately wanted to become more powerful, so he had to go to the World Hero Conference. Besides, Daoya Old Man was still injured, so he had to save him. An hour later, Zhou Xuanji and Jiang Shui walked out of the wooden hut. Everyone turned around and was shocked. Huang Lianxin sighed. It feels like a completely different person. Daoya Old Man walked up to Zhou Xuanji, bit his finger, and drew a line across Zhou Xuanji's forehead. Disgusting, Zhou Xuanji said in disdain. He felt his forehead heat up, and following this, his entire face heated up. Daoya Old Man stared at him and said unpleasantly, this is immortal blood. Zhou Xuanji ignored him and came to the lakeside to see his own face. Damn! Why am I so ugly? Zhou Xuanji was furious. He turned around and looked at Jiang Shui. Jiang Shui rolled her eyes and said, how am I ugly? It's just that you were too good-looking. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji had big eyes and thick brows. His skin was bronze in color, and he looked ordinary, like a passerby. 3 months later, you will revert back to your original appearance. You must seize the time and come back quickly. Daoya Old Man reminded him. He was warning Zhou Xuanji not to stay in Zhaoga. There were many places in Zhaoga that mesmerized men. Back then, cough cough. Let's not talk about it. Zhou Xuanji looked at Jiang Shui bitterly, before he leaped into the lake and left immediately. Jiang Shui covered her mouth and giggled. Then, she pulled Huang Lianxin to whisper to her. I have a feeling that my revered teacher will be famous in Great Shang. Xiao Jinghong said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji seemed to be able to turn the world upside down no matter where he went. Zhao Tsongjian and Bei Xiao Wangjian nodded. They were looking forward to it. Daoya Old Man shook his head and smiled. This World Hero Conference is not that simple. A child of destiny is participating, and Xuanji might not be able to defeat him. If he can defeat him, he will receive a great transformation. The group was curious. Child of destiny? Who could it be? After Zhou Xuanji dashed out from the lake, he flew toward Great Shang on his sword. He still remembered the direction that Han Shenbo pointed him in. After he entered Great Shang, it would not be difficult for him to ask for directions to Zhaoga Royal City. He traveled at full speed and was not worried that Lin Guanyu would suddenly appear. Since Daoya Old Man let him out, it meant that there was no danger. He still could not understand why Lin Guanyu would charge into Great Shang with such a large force. Why didn't he hide and wait for him to appear? Maybe he was overwhelmed by hatred. After all, he could not find them for half a year. Zhou Xuanji thought as he moved forward. Within an hour, he came to Great Shang's border custom. The border customs wall was 30 meters tall, which was equivalent to more than 30 meters. It was majestic, and the queue to enter the custom was long. At a glance, there were at least 1,000 people. He stored his sword and landed on the ground. He came to the back of the queue. TSK. The World Hero Conference attracted so many people. Yeah. This is an opportunity for a carp to leap over the Dragon's Gate. Once you show off, you will be recruited by various factions in Great Shang. Who would miss such an opportunity? Did you guys hear about the battle between Baba Blademaster and Great Shang's Fury Buddha? Is it important? Zhou Xuanji listened to the discussions in front of him quietly to gather the information he wanted. Great Shang's World Hero Conference was even grander than Great Zhou's Heaven Selection. There were no requirements, and the winner would receive the Emperor's token. Seeing the token was equivalent to seeing the Emperor of Great Shang. With this token, no one in Great Shang would dare to offend them. The Emperor of Great Shang was very smart. He would not forcefully recruit the winner and use this method to gain favor. After a long time, when Great Shang was in danger, all the heroes in the world would come to their aid. In the northern wilderness region, reputation was very important. Screech. At this moment, the sound of a ferocious beast came from the east. Everyone turned to look, only to see 2 green birds with wingspans of 50 feet pulling a car over from the horizon. On the steps of the carriage were two ladies. They wore a red dress and a white dress respectively. Both of them were as beautiful as flowers. The green birds pulled the carriage and quickly came to the border custom. My young master wants to choose 10 cultivators to help. After it is done, we will reward you handsomely, the lady in the red dress said. The woman in the red dress said. After that, she and the woman in the white dress leaped down like fairies descending to the mortal world. Let me do it. Let me do it. It's the Hanin divine sect. Green birds pulling the carriage. Could it be the saintess of the Hanin divine sect, Xueqi? Very likely. The cultivators in front of Xueqi were all excited. He noticed that most of them were men. He rubbed his chin and mumbled, "If I were the main character, I would be chosen by the saintess, and a melodramatic plot would unfold." At this moment, the lady in the white dress flew above Xueqi's head and pointed at him. "You, come over and follow me," she said condescendingly, her expression indifferent. Chapter 133. Facing the fairy-like lady in a white dress, Xueqi rejected her immediately. "Sorry, I'm going to participate in the World Hero Conference. I won't be going with you." "Poor saintess. I won't give you the chance to touch me." The woman in the white dress frowned and looked at him with a strange expression. The same was true for the other cultivators in front of him. "It's on the way. Come with me. I'll reward you handsomely afterward." The woman in the white dress nodded, which made Xueqi's eyes light up. He hurriedly asked, "Could it be that your young master is also going to participate in the World Hero Assembly?" "That's right, so follow me." After saying this, the woman in the white dress flew towards the blue bird in the sky. Xueqi hesitated no more and leaped up. He noticed that there were a few other men following them. However, it was nothing. Xueqi shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He quickly came to the green bird. He subconsciously looked towards the carriage. He was slightly curious about the Hanin divine sect's holy maiden who was sitting inside. Soon, the other 9 people chosen by the 2 women gathered around Qing Miao. They were all men. Xueqi suddenly realized something. He might have been overthinking. The looks of the other 9 brothers were a little worrisome. He then thought of his own appearance. His face instantly turned green. "I hope I'm not thinking too much," he prayed inwardly. If that was the case, it would be too much of a blow to him. The lady in the red dress said to Xueqi and the others, "Follow behind us and follow us straight to Chaoga Royal City." With that, she waved her right hand, and 2 green birds flapped their wings and flew towards the Shang dynasty, pulling the car. As the carriage spun, the wind blew up the veil on the window, and Xueqi saw a breathtakingly beautiful face. It was only for an instant. He couldn't even see her face clearly. He only felt that she was very beautiful. He was in a daze for a moment before he hurriedly followed. The others were like this as well. Under the envious gazes of over 1,000 people below, they flew into the border pass and disappeared into the horizon. Along the way, the other 9 cultivators were very excited. According to them, Xueqi of the Hanin divine sect was the #1 beauty of the great Shang dynasty, and her cultivation had already reached the leaving aperture realm. Xueqi heard her. Old demonic woman? To be able to reach the leaving aperture realm, one had to have lived for several hundred years or even 1,000 years. His Jiang Shui was still the cutest. Xueqi did not participate in the others' conversation and remained silent. It wasn't until dusk that the 2 bluebirds landed on a mountainous area, and the car followed suit. The 2 ladies followed him, looking natural and unrestrained. It was obvious that they were nobles. The woman in the red dress said, "Let's rest here tonight. Later, our young master will come out and explain the mission to you." Everyone nodded. The strongest cultivator present was only at the 3rd level of the nascent soul realm. Even if they had malicious intent, they wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Xueqi sat before a giant boulder and cultivated alone. The other cultivators gathered in 2s and 3s, either cultivating or chatting. The sun set and the moon rose. Everyone started a bonfire. From time to time, the roars of demons could be heard from the surrounding forest. Xueqi suddenly walked out of the carriage. She was wearing a white dress and had a dignified posture. Her face was covered with a blue veil, revealing only a pair of charming eyes. Her hair was tied up in a bun, and there was a string of jewels on her snow-white forehead. Under the moonlight, her beauty was out of this world. Everyone's gaze was attracted to him, and the other 9 cultivators were dazzled. Xueqi snorted in disdain. How pretentious! His Jiang Shui was still the cutest. Su Xianxian walked to the front of the crowd and said, "I called you all here because your looks are not outstanding." Critical hit. Other than Xueqi, the other 9 cultivators' expressions changed drastically, as though they had eaten a fly. As expected. Xueqi sighed in his heart. Fortunately, I'm handsome, or else I would have fought them to the death. Su Xianxian ignored everyone's expression and continued, "I don't mean anything else. After this, I will give each of you 10,000 level 4 spirit stones, 100,000 spirit gathering pills, and an earth-grade spell scroll." The group heard her and their expressions turned for the better. After all, no one said that they were handsome since they were young. As long as the reward was tempting, they could tolerate it. Spirit gathering pills were a type of cultivation pill. At the same time, it was a common currency like spirit stones. In Great Shang, people were more used to using spirit gathering pills as currency. "What do you need us to do specifically?" A man with a face full of black pockmarks asked. Su Xianxian glanced at them and did not stop at anyone's face for a second, including Xueqi's. She said, "On the way to Chaoga Imperial City, there is a 7th-grade monster. In his territory, there are treasures of heaven and earth that we need. Your task is to be the bait. You don't need to fight. You just need to attract his attention. As long as we lure him out of his territory, I will fight, and my maidservant will harvest the treasures." 7th-rank demon. It was equivalent to the astral projection stage. The group was shocked. A short and fat man with tan skin and a pockmarked face asked closely, "So simple? Why choose us? Could it be that the demon likes to eat ugly men?" The lady in the red dress said unpleasantly, "Haven't you heard of our young master's engagement? If he knows that other men are close to our young master, you will surely die." Xueqi finally understood. Sometimes, being ugly was a safeguard for one's life? Hilarious. This was the biggest joke in the world. Xueqi felt sorry for the other 9 men. But the others heaved a sigh of relief. Xueqi Alliance's little evil lord? Tisk, I see. I heard that the little evil lord is narrow-minded. Just as I expected. It has been hard on the fairy. Yeah. How can the little evil lord be worthy of the fairy? Don't worry, fairy. We will surely complete the mission. The group spoke, which made Xueqi confused. Xueqi Alliance? He wondered what their relationship with Xinhao sect was. Everyone, rest well. We will depart tomorrow morning. Su Xianxian ignored the people's belittling of the little evil lord and returned to the carriage. The 9 ugly men looked at her back with pity. Su Xianxian was every man's dream, but it was a pity that they could not enjoy her. Xueqi closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. For the next 12 days, Su Xianxian did not come out of the carriage. They traveled during the day and rested at night. They leaped over mountains and lakes and finally came to the great demon's territory that Su Xianxian mentioned. The ground was full of potholes, and there were many ditches. Mist permeated the air in front of them, and the tall trees in the mist looked like monsters bearing their fangs and claws. The bluebird landed. Su Xianxian walked out with her 2 maidservants. She said to Xueqi and the others, "You guys go straight ahead. The maidservants and I will act separately to protect you. Remember, you can only retreat when I tell you to, lest you mistake the great demon for someone else." The group blushed. To them, there was no difference between a 6th-rank great demon and a 7th-rank great demon. If they really encountered one, they would be scared away. And so, Xueqi followed the 9 ugly men and moved forward. He took out the soft velvety sword and moved forward cautiously. After coming to Great Shang, he decided not to use his old sword, at least not before the end of the World Hero Conference, in case his identity was exposed. Chapter 134. The 10 cultivators, with Xueqi among them, walked into the mist slowly. They held their enchanted artifacts and moved forward carefully. Xueqi was very cunning and mixed in the middle of the group. He felt that it was too scary to walk on the 2 sides. Even though he was the most powerful person among them. After entering the mist, the soil under his feet was wet, and there were swamps everywhere. Zhou Xuanji looked back. Even with his mind, he could not see Su Xianxian and the other two girls. They won't trick us, will they? Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. The others did not seem to hear him and remained alert. Actually, they did not trust Su Xianxian completely. But since they were already here, they could only force themselves to move forward. They all had their own life-saving abilities, so they were confident. They walked forward for 500 meters and still did not encounter any danger. They had already entered the swamp area. Their surroundings were covered in mist, and the visibility was extremely low. They could only see less than 10 meters. Roar! A deafening roar came from ahead of them, accompanied by a gust of wind that smelled like blood. The wind blew their hair wildly. Everyone be careful. A bald man with a big face said with a deep voice. Even without his reminder, the others were already nervous. The least nervous one was Zhou Xuanji. He only disliked the atmosphere, but it did not mean that he was afraid. He was not even afraid of the 7th-rank demon. It was his first time seeing a 7th-rank demon, so he was curious. I hope this guy won't disappoint me. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. His eyes were filled with anticipation. The group continued to move forward. They emitted their aura, and no demons dared to attack them. As they moved forward, the roar grew louder, which meant that they were getting closer to the 7th-rank demon. A bunch of worms. I'm hungry. At this moment, a cold and domineering voice came from ahead, which gave everyone goosebumps. Next, the ground shook violently, as though a gigantic creature was charging toward them. 7th-rank Demon King. Retreat! Su Xianxuan's voice came from somewhere. Everyone heard her and ran backward. Zhou Xuanji turned around and moved to the side with the 8-step sword lunge, disappearing into the mist. He quickly hid in a bush and used the Qi obscuring incantation to hide his aura. Under Daoya Old Man's guidance, his Qi obscuring incantation had reached a higher level. As long as the opponent was not 3 stages higher than him, it would be difficult to detect his aura. A 7th-grade demon was only 2 major realms higher than him. Soon, he saw a black shadow that was as large as a hill pass by in front of him. Whoosh, an air-piercing sound rang out, and with a flash of light, Su Xianxian made her move. Rumble! The ground shook violently, and mist billowed. Zhou Xuanji could not see the exact situation of the battle. He could only see a blurry shadow swaying wildly. He wasn't interested in the treasures in the territory of a rank 7 demon. What he was interested in was the great demon itself. His team also needed tanks. This guy was huge, so he might be very suitable. Bitch! You dare to go against this king with just this bit of ability? The roar of the 7th stage great demon rang out once more, his tone filled with disdain. Bang! A silhouette flew toward Zhou Xuanji with extreme speed. Zhou Xuanji dodged to the side instinctively. Next, Su Xianxian fell beside him. The veil on her face flew up, revealing a face so beautiful that it could topple nations. Su Xianxian looked at him with resentment in her eyes. She saw clearly how Zhou Xuanji dodged. Although she did not want to have skin contact with a man, this guy was too heartless. She quickly got up and said with a deep voice, "Why haven't you escaped?" Zhou Xuanji chuckled. "I'm not interfering with your mission. Why should I escape?" Su Xianxian frowned. She did not say anything because the rank 7 demon was already charging toward them. The mist was blown away by the violent wind, and Zhou Xuanji finally saw the face of the rank 7 demon. He was covered in black fur and was 30 meters tall. A pair of bull's horns grew out of his wild hair, which pierced the sky. His face and body were like a human's, but his eyes were red, which made him look extremely hideous. He wore black armor, and the green cloak behind him danced in the wind. When he saw Zhou Xuanji, he grinned and said, "Very good. Another one to feast on." Zhou Xuanji stared at him and nodded satisfactorily. "Your figure looks domineering." The rank 7 bull demon heard him and laughed proudly. "My name is Chongming Demon Monarch. Do you think it's domineering?" Chongming Demon Monarch? Zhou Xuanji had never heard of him, but he was quite satisfied with this guy's appearance. "Follow me," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. With this, Su Xianxuan's expression changed, while Chongming Demon Monarch was stunned. Chongming Demon Monarch stared at Zhou Xuanji and asked with a deep voice, "Brat, are you stupid?" Zhou Xuanji flipped his right hand, and the Phoenix Emperor sword appeared in his hand. A horrifying aura exploded from his body. The phoenix flame burned along his right arm. Next, half of his body was ablaze, but he was not injured at all. At this moment, he looked like a fire god. Chongming Demon Monarch was shocked. Zhou Xuanji gave him a bone-chilling feeling. Su Xianxian opened her eyes wide. She did not expect Zhou Xuanji to be so powerful. What's his motive? Su Xianxian sensed that something was wrong and looked at Zhou Xuanji cautiously. Zhou Xuanji walked toward Chongming Demon Monarch with his sword in hand. "How is it? Am I still stupid?" He laughed coldly. Chongming Demon Monarch heard him and felt humiliated. He roared furiously and raised his right hand. A white bone blade appeared in his hand, which was even longer than his body. He slashed at Zhou Xuanji with great force, as though it could sink the ground. The surrounding mist was dispersed immediately, revealing the swamp within a radius of 500 meters. Clang! The blade and the sword clashed. Zhou Xuanji blocked the slash with his sword single-handedly. Awesome! The amethyst legendary sword indeed. Zhou Xuanji felt that Chongming Demon Monarch was not that powerful. It might be because his cultivation had increased, which made it easier for him to control the amethyst legendary sword. Chongming Demon Monarch was enraged. A layer of faint black radiance emanated from his body. Boom! The ground beneath his feet shook violently, and cracks appeared on the ground. His power began to increase. Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and came up to Chongming Demon Monarch's back with the 8-step sword lunge. He exerted strength in his legs and leaped up. He raised the Phoenix Emperor sword and slashed. Tempest slash. The sword chi slashed horizontally and landed on Chongming Demon Monarch's back. Blood splattered. Chongming Demon Monarch's face was distorted, and his body stumbled a few steps forward. Su Xianxian backed off quickly, distancing herself from Chongming Demon Monarch and Zhou Xuanji. She was shocked. Chongming Demon Monarch could not resist Zhou Xuanji at all? "Brat! I will hack you into pieces." Chongming Demon Monarch roared furiously. He turned around and slashed. The terrifying demonic aura gathered together, and with a flash of saber light, the saber chi slashed out vertically, directly splitting the mist in half. The ground in front was torn apart, and trees were uprooted from the ground, while small mountains were directly crushed into pieces. Bum! Bum! Boom! The blade chi swept across tens of thousands of meters and created a bottomless canyon. It was extremely horrifying. Chapter 135. Zhou Xuanji levitated in the air with a smile on his face, but he felt a little guilty in his heart. Although he had the Phoenix Emperor sword with him, if he was hit by that slash just now, he would have been crushed into pieces. Such destructive power. Chongming Demon Monarch roared at him. Waves of sound waves shook the sky. A loud bang resounded. Chongming Demon Monarch leaped up and slashed at Zhou Xuanji with his saber. His massive body, which was 30 meters tall, was not slow at all. It could even be said to be extremely fast. Zhou Xuanji activated the vibrant raindrop sword. His sword shadows were continuous, and the sword chi engulfed Chongming Demon Monarch in an instant. Countless sword chi landed on Chongming Demon Monarch's body. He gritted his teeth and received the attacks with his body without any defense. Zhou Xuanji's eyes brightened at this sight. "Why? Are you afraid? My skin is impenetrable and indestructible." Chongming Demon Monarch grinned. He thought that he had intimidated this brat. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile, "I'm not afraid. I want you more now." Having heard that, Chongming Demon Monarch opened his eyes wide. He suddenly thought of a legend he heard before. There were some people with wicked interests in the human race. He was in a bad mood immediately. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji somersaulted backward to increase the distance between them and flew 1,000 meters into the sky. This sword move is called Heavenly Lights. Chongming Demon Monarch, submit to my sword. Zhou Xuanji, who was under the blazing sun, was like a god. Su Xianxian opened her eyes wide. The fleeing cultivators also subconsciously turned their heads to look. The two maidservants who were picking the flowers carefully looked up too. Everyone saw Zhou Xuanji, but they could not see his face clearly. He swung the Phoenix Emperor sword quickly with his right hand, and countless sword chi descended like a thunderstorm. The sword chi transformed into the sun, moon, and stars. The sun and moon were in front, and the stars were behind. It was as if a torrent was crashing down at an extremely fast speed. Chongming Demon Monarch could not dodge in time and blocked with his white bone saber instinctively. Boom! The heavenly lights clashed with his white bone saber and numbed his arms instantly. Before the tsunami of sword chi, he seemed to be dwarfed. This scene was extremely shocking to the eyes. Su Xianxian opened her eyes wide and did not dare to blink. The others were even more dumbfounded. Suppressed by the sun, moon, and stars, Chongming Demon Monarch gradually landed on the ground. The torrent of sword chi did not dissipate and forced him to slide backward. His feet rubbed against the ground, creating 2 long grooves. He gritted his teeth in anger, and his heart was filled with horror. "Who are you?" he roared hoarsely. He was napping in his territory, so how did he provoke such a terrifying expert? "Isn't my luck a little too bad? I'm the Phoenix Sword Emperor. I've taken a fancy to your strength and image, so I've recruited you as my mount. It's your fortune. You dare to refuse?" Xueqi said proudly with a magnetic and majestic voice. With that, he swung his sword again. The sun, moon, and stars charged out and collided with Chongming Demon Monarch. Boom! The armor on Chongming Demon Monarch's body was instantly shattered. He was covered in blood as he screamed in agony as he was sent flying. Its huge body rolled on the ground, knocking down trees one after another. In the end, it crashed into a mountain 1,000 meters away. Its body was embedded into the mountain wall, and it lost its ability to fight. Silence. The world fell into silence. No one dared to breathe too loudly. They were all stunned, including Su Xianxian. Xueqi landed quickly and came up to Chongming Demon Monarch with the Phoenix Emperor sword. "Are you convinced?" he asked. 2 consecutive attacks of the heavenly lights consumed half of his spirit energy, but he could not show it. Chongming Demon Monarch looked up with difficulty. At this moment, he was covered in blood and looked extremely miserable. "I am not convinced." Who was he? 7th rank Demon Monarch. To be able to stay in Great Shang, his power was extraordinary. How could he submit to someone else? Xueqi raised the Phoenix Emperor sword and pierced into his abdomen. Chongming Demon Monarch grimaced in pain. "My sword will go down. Are you sure you are not convinced?" Xueqi asked calmly. Chongming Demon Monarch heard him and his pupils contracted. "Master!" he cried out loudly. "From today onwards, I, Chongming Demon Monarch, will follow your lead." And now, Xueqi had subdued a 7th rank demon. Su Xianxian, who was watching from afar, was stunned. The famous Chongming Demon Monarch was subdued just like that? She had a surreal feeling, as though she was in a dream. Xueqi stored his sword and let Chongming Demon Monarch recuperate. A while later, the 2 maidservants returned to Su Xianxian with 2 purple flowers in each of their hands. After handing them to Su Xianxian, they turned around to look. There was no mist between them and Xueqi. The ground was cracked, and there were ruins everywhere. It was a complete mess. It was hard to imagine what kind of battle had taken place here. The lady in the white dress frowned and asked, "Young lord, is he the one I recruited?" She recalled her attitude toward Xueqi and felt a lingering fear. If Xueqi was an evil cultivator, it would be a nightmare for them. Su Xianxian took a deep breath and nodded. "Phoenix Sword Emperor. Have you heard of him?" The 2 ladies shook their heads in confusion. The lady in the red dress muttered, "The northern wilderness region is so vast, and there are so many heroes. To become a Sword Emperor, he must be powerful and charismatic. Should we befriend him?" The lady in the white dress stared at her and said unpleasantly, "Aren't you afraid that the little evil lord will be angry?" "What's there to be afraid of? If he's so powerful, he should go and find the Phoenix Sword Emperor. Whether he can win or not is another matter." The lady in the red dress did not care. They had never been interested in the little evil lord, including Su Xianxian. Su Xianxian thought about it and said, "He's going to participate in the World Hero Conference. We can bring him along, and it can be considered fate. Other than that, we don't have to be too attentive." A powerful cultivator like him might dislike such behavior. Along the way, Xueqi did not throw a tantrum or show off his might. She was impressed by his demeanor. The two ladies nodded. They were curious about the Phoenix Sword Emperor's background. But they did not develop any other feelings. Xueqi was not handsome, after all. A while later, Chongming Demon Monarch's injuries recovered a little. He looked at Xueqi with a complicated expression. Pack up and follow me later. If you dare to escape, I have 10,000 ways to find you and make you wish you were dead. Xueqi instructed calmly. He gave Chongming Demon Monarch a chance to escape on purpose to make him fearful. As long as he did not dare to escape this time, he would not dare to do so in the future. Chongming Demon Monarch left with his head lowered. His domineering silhouette now looked so lonely. It was as though a king had fallen from his divine altar. Half an hour later, Chongming Demon Monarch returned. The bloodstains on his body were washed away, and his wounds began to heal. Such self-healing abilities made Xueqi envious. Xueqi asked him to transform into his original form, which was a muscular bull with a shoulder height of 2 meters. This bull was a green bull, but there was a lot of black hair on its body, which made it look evil. He rode on Chongming Demon Monarch and walked up to Xueqi and the other two ladies. Let's go. Let's go straight to Chaoga Royal City, he said. Seeing the bull under Xueqi, the three ladies were stunned for a moment. Xueqi nodded and said, Sir, please follow us. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.